Chapter 1125. Under permissible circumstances, making use of loopholes in the rules was also a shortcut to obtaining a higher ranking in this competition. Headmaster Chen knew his old acquaintances too well. His heart was as clear as a mirror, and he knew that this group of people would definitely miss this opportunity. Li Qingxi, the headmaster of No. 1 Devil Subduing High School, and Zhua Qingqiu, the headmaster of Balance Flame Middle School, were probably making corresponding plans at that moment. Of all the headmasters this time, Headmaster Chen thought that these two were his biggest enemies. Although they had both been defeated by him and didn't seem to be a threat, they wouldn't be able to support these two key city-level high schools if they didn't have some skills. No. 1 Devil Subduing High School was good at control spells, and the students of Balance Flame Middle School were very good at learning. Together, these two schools seemed to be a powerful combination. No. 1 Devil Subduing High School was good at control spells, and since they were good at control spells, they could control people or objects. Headmaster Chen could imagine using control spells to confuse the equipment used for the entrance test and cause it to make a false judgment. Given Li Qingxi's personality, he would definitely make his students do that. Even if they could bring one more fasting pill into the 8-day survival battle, their chances of winning would be greatly improved. Compared with Li Qingxi's side, the students of Balance Flame Middle School were more conservative. They were a bunch of bookworms who were overly particular about rules and dogma, and finding loopholes was absolutely unthinkable in their eyes. Headmasters wanted to persuade his students to bring the goods in, but he was also faced with the difficulty of the students being unwilling to break the rules. As headmaster, he couldn't force the students to do what he wanted. Headmaster Chen speculated that this headmasters would probably choose one or two students and use some tricks of his own to trick them into bringing the goods in. Headmaster Chen speculated that this headmasters would probably choose one or two students and use some tricks of his own to trick them into bringing the goods in. Humans could never escape the law of truth. Thus, Headmaster Chen's plan for Balance Flame Middle School was very simple. After everyone heard Headmaster Chen's plan, the corners of Dopig's mouth twitched. Report. Is that really okay? Isn't that shameless? It's just a reasonable way to compete, Headmaster Chen said. Balance Flame Middle School was a school that would be difficult to deal with in the later stages. They absolutely couldn't be allowed to survive the battle, so they had to be dealt with in the early stages as much as possible. If they could reduce the number of students right from the start, it would be good news for all the schools. Headmaster Chen had devised a strategy for this. As for how No. 60 High would bring the magic treasures inside, he had already thought of this. Perhaps he could use Lotus Sun's mysterious sea to achieve this. Everyone knew that Lotus Sun's spirit sword had already awakened a sword spirit. As long as she used the characteristics of a sword spirit to hide it in the sword spirit space, it would be impossible for the equipment to detect it. Although spirit swords couldn't be brought into the National Physical Technique competition this time, if the sword spirit and the sword master were compatible enough, they could open up a sword spirit space remotely. Mysterious Sea has been with student Lotus Sun since she was born. In terms of compatibility, none of the students here should be as good as Lotus Sunday. That's why I'll have to trouble you with this operation. Yes, Headmaster. Lotus Sun readily agreed. As a delicate girl, even if Headmaster Chen hadn't said anything, Lotus Sun had in fact already thought of this method. She didn't just have to bring magic treasures, but also a lot of daily necessities. An 8-day battle for survival would definitely make one very sloppy, but Lotus Sun didn't want that to happen. This was a national competition, and there would always be footage of her entering the competition. She had to pay particular attention to her image, otherwise she would bring shame to her Huaguo water curtain group. Thus, she had to bring talismans for cleaning, as well as cosmetics for the girls. If conditions permitted, it would be best if she could wash and change her hair once a day. After class, everyone began to discuss what to bring. Li Yuiwei asked, "Will we really not be discovered?" Lotus Sun nodded with a smile on her face. "We won't be discovered. It's very difficult to form a sword spirit space, and I was lucky enough to cultivate it. Generally, very few students at the foundation establishment stage can open up a sword spirit space, so it's unlikely that the inspection will specifically focus on a spirit sword space, as that would be too cumbersome. I don't know how long it would take to inspect over 1,000 students." Li Yuiwei breathed a sigh of relief. "That's great. I was wondering what I would do if I was covered in dirt during these 8 days. Can you help me bring some cosmetics and toiletries?" "Lotus Sun, I'll prepare a few more, just use mine." Lu Qingyi also echoed, "Me too." Lotus-san nodded graciously. No problem. Super Chen, but what if... You shut up, the three girls berated him at the same time, stopping him. The power of this blessed mouth really couldn't be underestimated. In fact, Lu Qingyi also had a way to bring things in, but the problem was that she had no money at the moment. The money she earned from working at Wei Ji's house was only enough to buy some cheap cosmetics. Life was really too hard, so it would be good to freeload a little and save some money. Wang Ling realized that girls' train of thought was surprisingly consistent when it came to a battle for survival. Their first concern wasn't whether they could survive, but their appearance, which was a little too realistic. Hero Gua couldn't help sighing at this scene. This is a battle for survival. Can you be a little more serious? For a girl, is there anything more important than being pretty and clean? Li Yuiwes smiled and looked at Lotus Sunday. Ah, that's right. Rong, I have a set of kitchenware here. Bring it in for me later. There are a lot of local specialties on Nine Dragon Mountain. If I can gather good ingredients, I can make a picnic for everyone. Knives? No problem. My sword spirit space is pretty big. It can probably fit in 2 trunks. Lotus-san nodded in agreement. Then can you help me bring a game console in? Hero Gua asked. You're the one who's going on a vacation. Hi, I was going to stay at home and play Death Stranding next week, but who knew I'd be sent out for a competition? Don't worry, I'll only play when it's absolutely safe. As long as I can bring it in, I'll do anything. Where's your integrity? Lotus-san sweated in her heart, then turned to the others. Is there anything else you want to bring? I have a lot of space here. After saying that, she turned to look at Wang Ling. Lotus-san, classmate Wang Ling, do you want crispy noodle snacks? Wang Ling. Chapter 1126. Tomorrow was Friday, which was also the day number 60 high school would be going to Jinghua City. After school, everyone in the special training class gathered together to discuss whether they should go out for dinner that evening. The National Body Technique competition was not a one-man game. Headmaster Chen also supported this proposal. Having a meal together was a good opportunity for them to communicate and improve their relationship. A few days ago, the relationship between Xia Ming and Wang Ling had been very strained, and Headmaster Chen also felt that this might be a hidden danger. It's my treat. Let's all go out for a meal, Headmaster Chen said. To be honest, everyone was surprised by Headmaster Chen's generosity. Headmaster, are you going too? I'm not going. Headmaster Chen hurriedly shook his head. It was indeed not appropriate for an old man like him to attend a gathering of youngsters. Not only did they not have a common topic to talk about, but the generation gap between them could easily lead the conversation astray. If he were to be involved, Headmaster Chen felt that the group of children would not be able to eat to their heart's content. There are 10 of you. Is 3,000 enough? Wow! The principal has spent a lot of money. The next week will be very hard. This amount of money is nothing to me. Headmaster Chen took out a stack of notes from his pocket and handed it to Lotus Sunday. Student Lotus-san will organize this. I only have 2 requests for you. First, find a clean restaurant to eat and don't spoil your stomachs. Second, go home early after eating. Thank you, Principal. Everyone expressed their gratitude. After politely accepting the 3,000 yuan from the headmaster, Lotus-san let out a long sigh of relief. Dinner parties were of course good, but there were times when she had offended quite a few people because of them. After all, she was the young mistress of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Every time she went out with her friends for a meal, she always paid particular attention to extravagance. Such high-profile behavior would naturally arouse the jealousy of others. If we were to use a modern popular term, it could be summarized as lemon people. After all, their family backgrounds were different. Lotus-san was used to being high-profile since she was a child, and until high school, she didn't even think it was a bad thing. She didn't have the intention to hurt his feelings. Her family was rich and powerful. Was she to be blamed? It wasn't until the entrance test at the start of the semester that she met Wang Ling. By now, she actually felt that she had learned a lot from Wang Ling after being his classmate for half a semester. Keeping a low profile was not a bad thing. Before she went to high school, she came with the idea of attracting attention. She wanted to buy the hearts of the whole school and make herself the brightest star. Now, Lotus-san's way of thinking had changed. It didn't seem so bad to be an amiable and approachable young miss. The 3,000 yuan that Headmaster Chen gave could be said to be completely generous. If the 10 of them went out for a meal, her bodyguards would most likely rush to pay the bill. What would the other students think of her? Wasn't this clearly showing off? Classmate Wang Ling definitely wouldn't like this. Let's discuss what to eat. Lotus Sun carefully put 3,000 yuan on the table and put on a serious posture. It wasn't that she was being modest, but that she really couldn't come up with any ideas. In order to maintain her figure, she almost never had the habit of eating dinner, so she couldn't think of any food to recommend. This was already the 1,346th day in a row that she had relied on fasting energy pills to pass the night. There's a soup shop on Yellow Springs Road that I think is pretty good. Do you want to try it? An online restaurant. Superchin said. Yellow Springs Road. Why is it so inauspicious? Is it selling Grandma Meng's soup? Hirogwa pursed his lips. Forget it. I'll believe it a little. No one can say anything about metaphysics. There's too much poisonous milk these days. After saying that, everyone looked at Super Chen. Super Chen, look at me, it's just Yellow Springs Road. It's just a sip of soup. I'm only saying this for the sake of our female compatriots. Eating light food at night won't make you fat. It's not like you'll really. Before he could say the word die, Hirogwa hurriedly covered Super Chen's mouth, but everyone could still vaguely hear the inauspicious word that Super Chen was about to say. At that moment, Wang Ling had already started to mourn in his heart for that online celebrity soup shop. Then, Wang Ling searched for news about that shop on his phone, and sure enough, he saw the latest exposure of that online celebrity soup shop in the latest news. The headline was, Yellow Springs Road's 9 Twists and 18 Bends. An online celebrity soup shop has been shut down by the relevant authorities for investigation due to hygiene issues that caused diners to suffer from severe diarrhea. After reading it, Wang Ling silently turned off his phone. It could only be said that Super Chen's mouth was indeed terrifying. But Wang Ling also realized that what Super Chen said had to be unconscious in order for it to be more effective. The so-called utilitarian milk couldn't be relied on, and this applied to Super Chen as well. For example, if Super Chen predicted that he would get full marks in the next exam for the sake of his grades, this wouldn't happen. Then what on earth are we going to eat? Have you thought about it? Wang Zhan stared at the 3,000 yuan on the table and swallowed. After he and Lu Qingyi had been punished by the heavenly Tao, they had been eating instant noodles for almost every meal in order to save money. Now, Wang Zhan felt that his burps tasted like braised beef noodles. 3,000 yuan was enough to fill their stomachs based on current prices on Earth. Let's all agree on what to eat first. If there's nothing else to say, let me recommend it. I know a few good shops. Li Yueyue raised her eyebrows with a confident look in her eyes. I don't eat spicy food. What about you? Lotus Sun thought for a bit. I don't seem to have any particular taboos. Super Chen, it doesn't matter if it's spicy or not, I don't eat duck. Hirogwa, I'll eat anything. Wang Zhan and Lu Qingyi said in unison, I'll eat anything too. After saying that, they looked at each other in dismay, then turned their heads away in disgust. Feng Xing, as for me, I won't eat anything too sweet. Gu Xuanji, my taste is the same as Wang Ling's. Zhen Yuan, me too. Wang Ling. Li Yueyue, then what's classmate Wang Ling's taste? Gu Xuanji smiled. He definitely likes black pepper. After all, the seasoning packet for crispy noodle snacks was black pepper flavored. After saying this, Wang Ling's heart shuddered. He had actually been right. As expected of the keeper of order. He was very dangerous. Seeing that everyone had joined in the discussion, Xia Ming didn't want to speak at first, thinking that it would be fine to just go with the flow. However, he felt that if he didn't speak, he wouldn't fit in. After thinking for a bit, he raised his hand and said, Well, I'm allergic to peanuts, I can't eat them. Fine, I understand. Li Yueyue thought for a bit, then said, How about eating seafood? You can adjust your own taste. I know a shop called Conch Girl. Do you know this shop? As soon as she said that, Lotus Sun instantly fell silent. Because this shop, it was actually a business under their Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Chapter 1127. As Lotus Sun had said, Huaguo Water Curtain Group had a lot of businesses under its umbrella. Elixirs were its main business, but because of its huge profits and world-renowned influence in the elixir industry, Huaguo Water Curtain Group had quickly formed a rich industrial chain after relying on elixirs to make a fortune. Film and television, esports, food, shopping. Huaguo Water Curtain Group's shadow could be seen in almost every popular industry. For example, this Conch Lady seafood chain store was in fact under Huaguo Water Curtain Group's name, but a lot of people didn't know its background. Lotus Sun had wanted to be on equal footing with everyone for this gathering, and Headmaster Chen had taken care of the meal expenses, which made her feel a little more at ease. But the problem was, how had things turned out like this? "Student Lotus Sun, you don't look very well?" Li Yuiwei asked. "Can't you eat seafood?" "No, I'm fine." Lotus Sun shook her head hurriedly. She silently took out her phone and sent a text message to the driver waiting outside the school gate, telling him to go to Conch Lady's shop in advance and say hello. Outside the school gate, the driver was also dumbfounded when he saw the text message, because Lotus Sun had only sent a message to say hello to Conch Lady's shop on XXX Road. What kind of greeting was that? She hadn't even mentioned it clearly. And the point was that this Conch Lady's shop was in Huaguo Mall, which was under Huaguo Water Curtain Group. There was practically no shop in Huaguo Mall that didn't know Lotus Sun. Was there even a need to say hello? The driver looked at his phone and frowned. Although he was puzzled, it was Big Miss's request, after all, and the driver didn't dare disobey. He immediately followed Lotus Sun's instructions and had the nearby bodyguards retreat 3 kilometers and follow them remotely, while he drove to the designated Conch Lady's shop to say hello. After everyone left the classroom, Lotus Sun found that the bodyguards who had been standing guard outside the classroom had already withdrawn, and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. "How are we going to get there?" Super Chin asked. "Let's fly on our swords. The competition is coming up, and we have to work hard on our stamina. Besides, we'll use up a lot of energy on our swords, so we'll have a good time eating," Hirogwa volunteered. Stamina had always been his weakness. It wasn't easy for him to get a chance to exercise, and it was good to make a last-minute effort. "I agree." Lotus Sun also nodded. To be honest, they were all surprised that Lotus Sun would agree. They had the impression that she wasn't on the same team as them. Generally speaking, there should be a black limousine waiting for her outside the school gates. But since Lotus Sun had agreed, the others naturally couldn't refuse. "Then let's do it this way. Let's all ride our swords together. Who will lead the team?" Everyone took out their spirit swords one after another, including Wang Zhan and Lu Qingyi. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had given them spirit swords. Because the Heavenly Tao had shielded their magic treasures, their own spirit swords had also been banned. However, as a cultivator, it was naturally inconvenient to move without a spirit sword. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took every opportunity to give them one each. But the prerequisite was that after they finished helping Wei Ji, they had to come to the Office of Strategic Deception to help out with some client orders, such as hunting down dark network fugitives and so on when they had free time. In some sense, Wang Ling felt that Wang Zhan and Lu Qingyi were pretty miserable. They could have been a loving couple in the world above, but in the end, they had come to the world below in order to escape marriage, and were punished by the Heavenly Tao. Not only could they not go back now, a young master and a young lady had to work for a living. How miserable could that be? Wang Ling naturally didn't have any objections to everyone choosing to fly on their swords. Flying a sword consumed both physical and mental energy, and they had to be focused, otherwise it was easy for them to slip and fall in midair. Thus, there was usually a team leader at the front when flying a sword, and it seemed that Lotus Sun was the only one to be tasked with this task. Wang Ling, Wang Zhan, Lu Qingyi, Jin Yuan and Gu Xuanji all had to stay hidden. The only person here who had given birth to a sword spirit was Lotus Sunday. One of the biggest benefits of a spirit sword was that it could achieve autopilot, and the sword spirit could control the flying sword independently to share the mental pressure on its master. If they could fly in a sword array, the mental pressure on each member of the team could be partly shared by the sword spirit in the lead, which was why many people liked flying swords in groups. This was one of the few offline gatherings Wang Ling had, and it was with his classmates. Along the way, Lotus Sun's Mysterious Sea felt pressure from behind. Mysterious Sea was well aware that this pressure was coming from Wang Ling's Jinka. F***K. He was just a little sword spirit, and he was being stared at by the Master of Sword Spirits as the big brother of the team leader. The pressure was huge. But Mysterious C didn't dare ask or say anything. He couldn't figure out the Master of Sword Spirit's temper, but as the saying went, a sword took after its master, and he was afraid that Jinka would kill him. After about an hour, everyone finally arrived at the designated commercial square. There was a designated parking lot in the commercial square. After everyone landed, Hirogwa started to gasp for air. F***K. I swear I'll never fly so far in one go again. I feel like I'm half dead. I'd rather do questions for an hour. Your stamina is too poor. Don't hold us back in the body technique competition, boss. When Super Chen said this, Hirogwa instantly tensed up, and he secretly cursed Super Chen for his foul mouth. The rest of them were already impatiently heading into the mall. When they reached the entrance of the mall, Lotus Sun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that her driver had already given them a heads-up in advance. Everything was going smoothly as planned. As they walked toward Miss Konk's shop, Lotus Sun kept cheering herself on. She was just a normal student today, and didn't need special treatment at all. She just needed to be the same as everyone else. But as she walked, she noticed that everyone in the mall seemed to be looking at her strangely. For a moment, an ominous premonition quietly rose in her heart. It shouldn't be like this, right? Oldley had been her driver for a long time, and should already know what she was thinking. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have misunderstood her. Thus, Lotus Sun started to check the text message she had sent to Oldley, and almost spat out a mouthful of blood when she saw the content. She had been too nervous at the time, and had directly asked Oldley to say hello, but hadn't said what kind of greeting. The content of this text message could indeed easily cause Oldley to misunderstand. By the time Lotus Sun led everyone to Miss Konk's restaurant, it was already too late. When the manager and employees of Miss Konk's restaurant saw Lotus Sun come out, they walked out with smiles on their faces and stood respectfully in a row. Then, the manager stepped forward and bowed deeply. Comrade Eldest Miss. Staff members, all in position. Please inspect. Lotus Sun. Everyone. Chapter 1128. Lotus Sun didn't want to be privileged, but she hadn't expected things to turn out like this. But to be fair, this couldn't be blamed on her driver Oldley. It was mainly her own fault for not expressing herself clearly. In the end, Oldley had really come here to say hello, scaring the manager of the Konk Girl branch in the Great Healthcare and Bath Center so much that he had to come back to work. Now, with a group of shop assistants bowing respectfully at the door, Lotus Sun felt a little awkward for a moment. But the truth was that the others didn't really care, because to them, this was all too normal. After all, Huaguo Water Curtain Group was very wealthy. So what if they opened a seafood shop? There were a lot of delicacies on Earth. Gu Xuanji and Jin Yuan had always been busy with their official and private affairs, and had been traveling to various major planets outside the Milky Way all year round. Food on other planets could be described in one word: unpalatable. So they would rather eat fasting pills when they were hungry. They didn't know when was the last time they had eaten a feast on Earth. It was only during these 2 days of studying at number 60 high that they had tasted the food from the cafeteria with everyone else. Needless to say, for Wang Zhan and Lu Qingyi, this pair of down-and-out young miss and young master didn't care who was paying as long as they had something to eat. As for Super Chen and Hero Gua, they were even more casual. Seeing that everyone didn't seem to mind, Lotus Sun sighed with relief. "Order whatever you want to eat," she said. "Let's do what we can. After all, it's Headmaster Chen's money. It wouldn't be good for the 10 of us to eat for free," said Li Yuiwei. They were both girls, so Li Yuiwei actually knew what Lotus Sun was thinking. It indeed wasn't good for them to be openly privileged on such an occasion. At that moment, the manager on the side smiled slightly. "Thank you for your understanding. Don't worry, I'll give everyone a discount, and won't let down Headmaster Chen's good intentions. Also, don't worry about the ingredients. The ingredients we provide are the freshest. We have Sea King spirit beasts that have just been caught from the sea." "Wow, just caught? How did they get delivered to the shop?" Super Chen was amazed. "There's a transmission array in the back kitchen. If you don't mind, you can put on the protective clothing over there and take a look." The manager invited them with a smile. Super Chen and Hero Gua were both the type who couldn't sit still. One had ADHD and the other was full of gossip. They naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity to visit. Moreover, they could even see a Sea King-type spirit beast. The average strength of the Sea King spiritual beasts was at the golden core stage. Thus, it was necessary to form a fleet of sea immortals to capture them. The meat was incomparably delicious. However, if they wanted to eat Sea King spirit beast sashimi, 3,000 yuan might not be enough for the 10 of them. Li Yuiwei was in charge of ordering. 10 minutes later, the chef at the back served the seafood sashimi, barbecue, and skewers. The main dishes were steamed buns, fried noodles, and rice balls. However, the staple food here was different from the staple food outside. The common staple food here was made of rice and flour. As a seafood restaurant, the ingredients for the staple food here were actually processed from the body parts of sea beasts. It looked like a staple food, but it was actually seafood. Everyone eat. Wang Zhen eagerly picked up his chopsticks, picked up a thick squid foot, and stuffed it into his mouth. His face was full of enjoyment. It was so delicious that he didn't want to talk. The ingredients were all the freshest, and even the chef was the best chef that Lotus Sun's driver, Old Li, had urgently dispatched from the city center. Naturally, there was nothing to complain about. After eating more than 10 plates of seafood, each person had a chopstick, but the boys actually still didn't feel full. Cultivators consumed more food than ordinary people to begin with, so their appetites were naturally bigger. Only Li Yuiwei, Lotus Sun and Lu Qingyi put down their chopsticks. Girls had to maintain their figures, so eating until they were half full was enough. Is there anything else? Yes, there's a deep-sea giant crispy fish that hasn't been served. Deep-sea giant crispy fish. It's a kind of deep-sea spirit fish that can be raised on crispy noodle snacks. It's huge, Li Yuiwei said. Hearing this, Wang Ling suddenly felt his mood improve. Raised on crispy noodle snacks. Everyone was horrified. Hearing this, they all felt that they were still too young. It was said that nothing was too strange in the world, but who would have thought that they would be able to find a fish in the deep sea that had the same hobby as Wang Ling? It really wasn't easy. It was Friday, November 14th. That morning, an aerial immortal warship was moored on number 60 High's sports field. It was shaped like a spirit sword, and relied on magnetic spirit stones with a powerful magnetic attribute to produce a repulsive reaction with the underground spirit vein to hover in the air. The captain at the helm didn't need to use the slightest bit of spirit energy to easily steer it. Aerial immortal warships like this actually weren't rare. Nowadays, aerial immortal warships that relied on magnetic spirit stones were in operation all over the world. Because of their high performance, low energy consumption and high environmental protection, they were widely admired by various countries. As long as the underground spirit vein still existed, these aerial immortal warships could be used permanently. The one moored on number 60 High sports field was in fact a small aerial immortal warship sent by the Alliance of 10,000 Schools in Jinghua City. In order to ensure that all the participating high school students from all over the country could arrive within the stipulated time, the Alliance of 10,000 Schools had clearly invested a lot of money this time. A magnetic immortal warship picking people up and dropping them off. This is too awesome. Damn, the treatment is so good. I'm so jealous. I've decided from this moment on, I'm a lemon man. If our school team doesn't make it to the top 60 this time, I'll be the first to turn into a Zuan warrior and scold them. In the corridor of number 60 high school, a lot of onlookers were discussing this. Their eyes were full of envy as they watched Wang Ling and the others leave on the sports field. Who knows what the competition will be like? I heard that we'll report in at 5 o'clock this afternoon, and then we'll have to go through the first round of eliminations. They'll start today? Of the 102 high schools, some have to be eliminated first, otherwise it'll be too messy on Nine Dragon Mountain. Everyone in the corridor whispered to one another as they discussed this. On the other side, Wang Ling and the others were dressed lightly and lined up neatly in a column. Headmaster Chen, who was leading the team, stood at the front, and the team's assistant teacher this time was still Old Antique. San Yuan had also joined number 60 High's camp as the safety consultant this time. This was the decision San Yuan had made last night. In any case, he was still on vacation and had nothing to do, so he had planned to join in on the fun and watch the grand competition. The main thing was that San Yuan was really curious as to whether number 60 High could really make it to where he wanted it to be. They were clearly just a bunch of foundation establishment high school students, but when San Yuan stared at the line of 10 people in front of him, he felt something special. He felt that there were a few people in this formation who could send him to meet the Buddha with a single punch. But San Yuan was well aware that this was probably an illusion. They were just a bunch of Foundation Establishment high school students. How could it be possible? Sogu Reading Website. Chapter 1129. The small airborne immortal warship could accommodate 50 people at a time. After the number 60 high delegation boarded the ship, Wang Ling saw that it had no intention of taking off, and he instantly had an ominous premonition. About 10 minutes later, another delegation of 10 people wearing luxurious school uniforms arrived at the field under the lead of the school guard, Old Man Li, to assemble. When the number 60 high team looked out the window, Super Chan and Hero Gua were instantly excited. It's number 59 high. Number 60 high school and number 59 high school could now be considered old acquaintances. Like number 60 high school, number 59 high school's headmaster was also there in person this time. Seeing the familiar figure of Headmaster Jean from number 59 high school, Wang Ling seemed to recall the Spirit Sword exchange meet that had been held not long after the first semester of grade 1. Number 60 high had won by a landslide that time. But it was also because of that exchange meet that the relationship between number 59 high and number 60 high had become closer. In addition, number 60 high had made an exception this year to be promoted to a key city school, which hadn't affected number 59 high's promotion at all. Headmaster Chen and Headmaster Jean, who were fellow disciples, hadn't fallen out because of this. Now that they were boarding the same spatial immortal warship, it could be said that this was a beautiful picture of a happy reunion. As Wang Ling thought to himself, he felt that this was a kind of fate that was preordained by the unseen. Everyone knew that Headmaster Chen and Headmaster Jean had come from the same sect. Now that both of them had become headmasters, they were each leading the students they had taught to participate in the national competition. Such a harmonious scene was truly touching. The first person to board number 59 high's ship was He Buffing. That delinquent senior who had been taught a lesson by Wang Ling back then had now completely turned over a new leaf. Not only had he shaved off his shamate and grown a very clean crew cut, he had also chosen a pair of pretty hipster glasses to perfectly set off his scholarly aura. As the saying went, clothes make the man. This was very well reflected in He Buffing. Although He Buffing had stayed back a year, it was clear that after turning over a new leaf, he was still very outstanding in all aspects. Otherwise he wouldn't have been invited to be a member of the delegation this time. Knowing one's mistakes was the most important thing to do. Everyone from number 60 high was slightly astonished by the obvious change in He Buffing's appearance and temperament when he boarded the ship. Even Wang Ling almost didn't recognize him. What was even more horrifying was that after He Buffing boarded the ship, he actually walked straight in Wang Ling's direction. Wang Ling had deliberately chosen a seat at the back because it gave him a sense of security. Everyone at No. 60 high was familiar with Wang Ling's personality, so no one took the initiative to sit with him. The space on the immortal warship was very spacious, enough for one person to occupy 2 seats. It was so hot squeezing together. So it was very obvious that He Buffing was after Wang Ling. "Excuse me, can I sit here?" He Buffing's words were astonishing, and his polite attitude left everyone at number 60 high speechless for a moment. Before Wang Ling could reply, He Buffing had already thanked him. "Thank you." Then he directly sat down next to Wang Ling. Wang Ling had nothing to say about this result. Back then, because of the king's eye, He Buffing, who had wanted to turn into a black cat to tease him, had directly revealed his true form naked in broad daylight. Now that He Buffing was sitting next to him, Wang Ling felt that this could be considered karma. It was all bad karma. But He Buffing probably didn't have any ill intentions towards him. From what Wang Ling could tell, He Buffing was only slightly suspicious of him, and thought that Wang Ling was a very strong person. In short, Wang Ling had to be wary of this person. Now, He Buffing's attitude towards Wang Ling was more like a fan? Wang Ling's thoughts ran wild. His expression was calm and composed as he looked out the window, pretending to ignore He Buffing, but in his heart, he had already figured out He Buffing's attitude. In addition to He Buffing, the other 4 members of number 59 high's fixed group of 5 were also here. Tang Jingze and the 3 Liang brothers, Liang Wei, Liang Zheng and Liang Fei. As for the other 5, Wang Ling wasn't so familiar with them. He even specially searched his memory, and felt that they were all unfamiliar faces. He hadn't seen them at the previous Spirit Sword exchange meet. After the people from number 59 High boarded the immortal warship, the atmosphere quickly warmed up. The main thing was that the relationship between the two schools was now more harmonious, and Tang Jingze would sometimes drop by number 60 High for the student union exchange meet. Thus, the atmosphere on the immortal warship between the two schools was actually better than expected. It was so harmonious that even the headmasters of both schools felt it was a little inconceivable. Senior brother, are we going to form an alliance this time? Headmaster Jean was the first to ask after boarding the ship. Does junior brother think it's a problem? Headmaster Chen raised his eyebrows. He knew his junior brother's personality too well. Unless it was absolutely necessary, there was no way he would talk about forming an alliance so easily. In fact, it was only when he saw the harmonious scene between the students of the two schools that Headmaster Jean had started to feel moved. Although the relationship between the two schools was essentially a competitive one, it's safer this way. Headmaster Jean pursed his lips and turned his head. If you don't want to form an alliance, forget it. I didn't say I didn't want to form an alliance. Headmaster Chen smiled. When they were in the same school, Headmaster Chen had often teased his junior brother. It had been so many years since they had graduated, and both of them had become headmasters, but Headmaster Chen felt that his junior brother's personality hadn't changed at all. He was still as damned tsundere as before. Fine. We'll set up a contract later. Headmaster Jean said. Set up a contract? So formal? Of course. Headmaster Jean said, after entering the battlefield, if our students run into each other and can't help each other, we'll use the 6th day of the survival battle as the deadline. On the 7th day, the contract will be void, and we can compete normally. I have no objections. Headmaster Chen smiled slightly at this suggestion. It was definitely a good thing to have someone form an alliance, but he still had his doubts about number 59 High's combat strength. Back then, I was proficient in support studies, but I took an unorthodox path. Junior brother, your path is relatively more orthodox. From your tone just now, it seems that you're very confident that number 59 High will survive? Well, Headmaster Jean kept them guessing. I saw that among the students that senior brother chose this year, there are also unfamiliar faces that I haven't seen before. Speaking up to this point, the two headmasters smiled in tacit understanding. Junior brother also found external help? Not really external help. These kids are all very outstanding, and are already our number 59 High students. Where did you find them? Sakura Sky High. Headmaster Chen was a little stunned. It wasn't that he hadn't heard of this school before. It was the cultivation high school of choice for the children of Jinghua City's high-ranking officials and dignitaries, and Feng Xing had transferred to number 60 High from there. Headmaster Chan found it inconceivable that number 59 High could actually poach students from Sakura Sky High. Chapter 1130. Because Feng Xing had transferred from Sakura Tianzhong, Headmaster Chen didn't know much about it. Sakura Tianzhong, or Imperial High for short. Imperial High was the cultivation high school of choice for the children of high-ranking officials and dignitaries in Jinghua City. However, Sakura Tianzhong didn't participate in the National Body Technique Exchange competition this time. Many of the high schools that were interested in competing for a place in the rankings couldn't help sighing in relief at this result. If Sakura Tianzhong participated, it would at least occupy one of the top 4 spots. Given Imperial High's reputation, it doesn't need to rely on this kind of national competition to fight for fame. This activity is a little dangerous, and I'm guessing that some leaders didn't want their children to participate, so they didn't sign up, Headmaster Jean said. You still haven't told me how you poached them? Imperial High has specially recruited students who are exempted from school fees every year. In the first semester, if their grades fall behind compared with their ranking in the entrance exam, they won't be able to enjoy the benefit of free tuition for the next year. Some of my students came because they couldn't bear the pressure of school fees, Headmaster Jean said in a low voice. Headmaster Chen raised his eyebrows as realization dawned on him. He stared at these Imperial High students. Although they had already transferred from Imperial High, each of them was still imposing and had the air of a top student. Competition in Imperial High was extremely fierce. Although they had transferred schools because their grades had fallen and they couldn't enjoy free tuition, they were essentially still very outstanding. As for why number 59 High School had been chosen, Given Headmaster Chen's understanding of his junior brother, it was likely that Headmaster Jean had used his silver tongue to personally poach him away. His junior brother was the best at poaching people from other schools. Headmaster Jean, when we get there, I'll poach some students from other schools to form an alliance with us. At the very least, we should fight for the top 50. Hearing this, Headmaster Chen and San Yuan on the side couldn't help muttering in their hearts. Top 50. That was too unrealistic. At around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the Air Immortal warship landed at the Nine-Dragon camp designated by the Alliance of 10,000 Schools. Several Air Immortal warships from other regions were already parked on the huge tarmac. Although number 60 High and number 59 High had already arrived 4 hours early, they still weren't the first to arrive. Wang Ling looked around the camp and used his king's eye to scan the surrounding terrain. This place was already under martial law. Apart from the students, teachers, and staff responsible for maintaining order, there were no idle people walking around. The Immortal Arts Mobile Squad had even been stationed outside the camp to set up layers of defenses, and all vehicles passing through the camp had to undergo strict checks. The security measures for the National Body Technique Exchange competition were top-notch. There were more than 1,000 students participating from all over the country, and the safety of the students was always their top priority. Of course, in addition to that, there was actually another very important reason, which was that the venue of the competition this time was Jiulong Mountain, which was not a simple scenic spot. The legendary Heavenly Vein Master Valve was here. After President Qi and his teacher Huang Feng had seen through Dark Ancestor Xie Sanqiao's plot to steal his skull a while ago, they naturally stepped up security for the national competition this time. So although Wang Ling and the others had arrived first, it wasn't like they had nothing to do. Those who arrived first had to be checked first, and no one could escape. Wang Ling was in line, and very soon, a team of people dressed in dark red Taoist robes came neatly from the distance. Super Chen couldn't contain his excitement. It's Jiulong Mountain's Resident Special Forces. Someone raised a question. Resident Special Forces? Every member of the Resident Special Forces has a remarkable background, and they are carefully selected talents. Any one of them could become Captain of Magnificent Immortal, Super Chen explained. Super Chen explained, but the Resident Special Forces aren't everywhere. I heard that the underground spirit veins on Nine-Dragon Mountain are very complicated, which is why the Resident Special Forces are on duty here all year round to prevent people from stealing spirit veins. Hearing this, everyone suddenly understood. These students from all over the country had been awed by the heroic bearing of the Jiulong Mountain Resident Special Forces, and they gradually realized how much importance the alliance of 10,000 schools attached to this national competition this time. Even the Resident Special Forces had been assigned to maintain security. This was simply too cool. Wang Ling didn't have to wait for long with the team. The members of the Resident Special Forces in red split into groups of 2 and began to set up an array in this rather empty campsite. They carved cryptic runes on the ground, then stood on either side of the array and skillfully performed hand seals. They were calm and unhurried, so cool that no one could take their eyes off them. It's the Star Shift Array. Some of the more knowledgeable students finally recognized the array's origin at the last moment. The Star Shift Array. It was a transmission array that could instantly move buildings from flat ground to flat ground. With a brilliant light, a magnificent pagoda-like building instantly appeared in the originally empty campsite. This pagoda was where they would be staying for the first night. But many of the students present found it strange, because after the Resident Special Forces used the array to draw the pagoda over, they didn't proceed with the next step. Many of the students were still waiting where they were. A few minutes later, a team of doctors in white coats slowly walked out from the bottom of the pagoda. One of them, who looked a little old, stepped forward and finally gave them their first instruction after landing. Jiulong Pagoda will open at 5 o'clock sharp in the afternoon. During this time, I hope that everyone will line up at the entrance in an orderly manner and complete the individual routine examination. After saying this, the old doctor pointed to 2 huge tents that had been set up not far away. For the time being, there won't be any schools for the examination. Students, please line up according to gender. Boys, line up in front of the tent on the left, and girls, line up in front of the tent on the right, and wait for your number to be called. What was this? A physical examination? A lot of people didn't understand, because there was no such procedure in the school's checklist. But this was an official request, so everyone could only obediently obey. In fact, it wasn't so much a physical examination as a verification of identity. There were a lot of students participating in the competition this time. During the previous military training exercise for the 6 schools, that old devil had once used a student as a cover to sneak in, so President Qi and that teacher Huang felt that there might be a mole in the national competition this time. So it was always right to be a little cautious. The boys were divided into groups of 5 for the examination. Wang Ling, Wang Zhan, Super Chen, Hero Gua and Gu Xuanji were in the same group. As soon as they entered the tent, Wang Ling saw the old doctor who had been in charge earlier. The old doctor swept his gaze over them and said calmly, "Now, take off all your clothes except for your underwear." Wang Ling. It wasn't that he didn't have the experience of a physical examination, but this was the first time he had stripped naked in front of someone. At that moment, Wang Ling was wondering if he should pinch his body a little before taking off his clothes to make some extra flesh. If his figure was too good, it would be too eye-catching. Chapter 1131. This seemed like a very simple examination, but was in fact a very sophisticated one. The old doctor held up a Tao disc with a mirror on it and muttered a spell. Very quickly, a beam of light shot out from the disc and swept over the 5 people in front of him. This was an anti-terror disc. The beam of light emitted from it was a beam of light that had the ability to collect. It could instantly extract the sweat on a person's body and the residual spirit energy molecules on the surface of the skin. Finally, it could be verified by big data. The beam of light emitted by the Tao disc didn't just have the ability to collect, it actually had a demon-revealing mirror ability. If someone tried to use disguise to get away with it, the Tao disc would be able to clearly identify them. As the beam of light shone on them, Super Chen, Hero Gua and the others were secretly alarmed. Even the anti-terror Tao disc had been used. They felt that this competition was really strict. From beginning to end, there was an air of impenetrability. After Wang Ling and the others put on their clothes again, the results of the examination were out. Identity verification successful. Square root no disguise has been confirmed. Square root no stimulants have been confirmed in the body. Square root no magic treasures have been confirmed on the body. Square root no cheats have been activated. Square root. After the examination of the group was over, the old doctor in charge of the examination stamped and signed each person's report before it was over. The old doctor had the air of a sage. With a flick of his sleeve, he distributed the reports precisely to each person, and then pointed to the screen behind him. Your first round is over. Go behind the screen for the second round of examination. There's more? Super Chen was a little surprised. The first round is just a simple identity verification, and the second round is to check each of your criminal records, the old doctor said. If you have a criminal record, there will be a lot of restrictions on what you can do in this competition, and you'll need to receive special supervision. Super Chen, criminal record? Everyone continued to be puzzled. However, the old doctor didn't answer Super Chen's question. He couldn't explain it to everyone. More and more students were gathering at the 9 Dragon Camp, and the examination had to be completed before 5 o'clock. Puzzled, Wang Ling and the people behind him walked behind the second screen, and as soon as they stepped inside, they saw an acquaintance. Audiobook was the chief prosecutor of the second round. He had already sensed his Shifu's aura in the first round, and when he saw Audiobook now, he naturally beamed with joy. There was no need for unnecessary words between the master and disciple. At this moment, they already had a tacit understanding. Senior Zhua. When Super Chen and the others saw Audiobook, their tense nerves gradually relaxed. Audiobook was the pride of their No. 60 High School. As long as he was around, as long as they were students of number 60 High School, they couldn't help but straighten their backs. Furthermore, Hero Gua had also received a very reliable piece of gossip, and that was that after number 60 High's renovation, the old stone sculpture at the school gate would also be replaced with a life-size sculpture of Audiobook. This was to encourage all the students of number 60 High to learn from him. Everyone calls me Officer Zhua here. Audiobook smiled apologetically. Yes. Super Chen and the others nodded cheerfully. It really wasn't good to curry favor in public. However, everyone was still quite confused about the investigation. They couldn't help recalling the last time several high schools had gone to the remains for an event. Back then, some lawbreakers had tried to interfere with the event, so there was no guarantee that someone would cause trouble again this time. This was what Super Chin thought, but he hadn't been able to verify it further. Audiobook naturally had some information on this. Not only was he the chief prosecutor of the second round of investigation, he was also in charge of part of the security for the entire competition. Naturally, it wasn't convenient for Audiobook to divulge the specific details since he had signed a confidentiality agreement. Generally speaking, it wasn't common for students to have criminal records. However, the event this time was of very high standards, so it went without saying that everything would be very strict. This criminal record wasn't a criminal record in the ordinary sense. Even if it wasn't recorded in a criminal file, it would still count as a crime that had happened on campus, such as cheating on exams, school violence, group bullying, forming gangs, failing to get grades in lower grades, and so on. Audiobook would only conduct a complex investigation, but whether or not he would be monitored by the competition authorities depended mainly on the seriousness of the case. This was an additional segment that the competition's expert discussion group had come up with after discussion. This was because the experts believed that students who had made mistakes were in fact more likely to be used by lawbreakers, so extra supervision was actually necessary. But the students who could attend the National Body Technique Exchange competition this time were the elites of their respective schools, and they were all senior grade 1 students. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any problems, but it was inevitable that there would still be weirdos. For example, there had recently been news of a high school student called Cha Tuachuo violently assaulting his girlfriend from the famous Cultivation Academy's Wine Devil High School. Although it was just an isolated case, it was still shocking. When the inspection segment began, everyone took out their ID cards one by one and let Audiobook check their criminal records through the public security system and the school system. Gu Xuanji, Jin Yuan, Wang Zhan. These were the students who had just transferred to the school, so their files were blank. Furthermore, it was Audiobook and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal who had helped set up their identities on Earth. Even so, they still had to go through the necessary procedures. When it was Super Chan and Hirogua's turn, Audiobook finally didn't see any more blank files, even though there weren't many records. Classmate Super Chin, you get up early every morning. Audiobook couldn't help laughing when he saw the record on the file. Getting up early. It's normal. It's also that I won't be late for school. I put a lot of thought into it. Super Chin laughed along. Is it so that you won't be late for school, or to copy homework? Audiobook asked. You can even find that out. Super Chen was startled. If you don't want people to know, don't do it. Also, classmate Hirogua's, when you copy homework, please don't do it so dangerously. It's really dangerous to put a pen in your nostrils to copy homework. Hirogua's. Both of them mainly got up early to copy homework, as well as to write down some cheating records from memory. These were all trivial matters, and were far from needing any extra supervision. After checking the two of them, Audiobook entered Wang Ling's ID number. Audiobook specially put Wang Ling last. Who was Wang Ling? This was his Shifu. How could there be anything wrong with him? In the end, when Audiobook opened Wang Ling's file, he almost fainted at the densely packed words on it. Wah! So many records. The inspectors around them thought they had caught a big fish, and they all gathered around with curious looks on their faces. The records on Wang Ling's file read, this year, April 3rd, classmate Wang Ling secretly ate crispy noodle snacks in class. This year, April 4th, classmate Wang Ling secretly ate crispy noodle snacks in class. This year, April 5th, classmate Wang Ling secretly ate crispy noodle snacks in class. Today, November 14th, Friday, classmate Wang Ling secretly ate crispy noodle snacks before boarding the immortal warship in the sky. Everyone. Chapter 1132. If you didn't want people to know, then don't do it. No one would have thought that these minor incidents would actually be recorded in the school's files. Of course, these were the school's internal files, and generally wouldn't be made public. Furthermore, they only recorded trivial matters, and wouldn't be directly displayed in the student's database. If you really wanted to know more about it, you could only look it up with the corresponding school's secret file key. Usually, these minor records were kept by the student's teacher in charge. Every teacher in charge had a pair of eyes, and Wang Ling, who sat in the back of the classroom, was naturally deeply aware of this point. Countless times when he had been secretly snacking, He had seen Teacher Pan looking at him through the back window, but Teacher Pan had never really stopped him. Young people were still growing up, and studying consumed brain cells. It was normal to feel bad for him to secretly eat in class when he was hungry, as long as he didn't get caught by the teacher in class. But Wang Ling never thought that his snacking would actually be recorded in such detail. It could only be said that as number 60 high school's teaching pioneer and gold medal teacher, Teacher Pan was in the end Teacher Pan. After the second round of inspections, Wang Ling and the others did a third round of inspections before the entire inspection was over. This time, it was far more stringent than he had imagined. Super Chen remembered that the last time they had gone to Beast King's remains, they had only used a special magnet to take away everyone's electronic equipment and magic treasures. It had been far less stringent and guarded than this time. I'm guessing that the Dark Network organization might be planning something again. That's why it's so tense this time. After Super Chen said this, he didn't feel anything, but the people around him suddenly became nervous. Wang Ling was well aware of Super Chen's character, and had also relied on his mind-reading ability to learn the whole story from Odd Shua. The whole incident had something to do with the theft of the skull of Xie San Shao, who was called Dark Ancestor, not long ago. Wuxia Alliance had already speculated that the mastermind behind this incident was trying to use this Dark Ancestor's power to attack the Heavenly Vein Master Valve on Nine Dragon Mountain. Furthermore, this matter could in fact be linked to the Black Shadow Army. Wang Ling guessed that the leader behind the scenes of the Black Shadow Army and the mastermind behind the theft of the skull were probably the same person. The other party had a miraculous resurrection ability, and it was precisely this troublesome ability that made it hard to guarantee that the Dark Net, which had been repeatedly hit hard by the authorities, would not use this power to exact revenge. Last time at Beast King's remains, several experts of the Dark Net had been captured one after another. Myriad Faces Old Man, Bloody Butterfly, and that Lord Dark Fragrance who had used the cells at work spell. They had all been captured and were waiting to be punished by the law. After connecting all these things together, Wang Ling suddenly had an ominous premonition. At the Nine Dragons camp, more and more students from all over the country were arriving at the target location via the aerial immortal warship. Everyone was lining up in an orderly fashion to undergo the inspection. Under the guidance of several tens of red-robed special forces, the queue was controlled in an orderly manner. After the inspection, Wang Ling and the others lined up neatly in square formations based on school and district. Wang Ling realized that the number of members of the special forces in red clothes had increased. The truth was that these security personnel were just the tip of the iceberg. For the competition this time, the medical team, including the security guards and doctors, had all been deployed to the highest level, and the alliance of 10,000 schools had mobilized tens of thousands of people. This number might seem a little exaggerated, but it was in fact a sign that the alliance of 10,000 schools had a high level of security awareness. Nine Dragons Mountain's terrain was complex and spanned a large area. If a student got lost inside, they wouldn't be able to find him immediately if they sent too few people. And in this kind of wild environment, once you were in danger, every minute was dangerous. The participants in the competition were the future flowers of the cultivation world, and for this reason, they had to prepare detailed safety measures. It wasn't like a certain variety show where a celebrity suddenly died in the middle of a high-intensity exercise, and even lost 4 minutes of golden rescue time. This was the most infuriating thing. 5 minutes before 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which was when the pagoda was about to open, the last student to be inspected walked out of the tent. Almost as soon as the student returned to the team, a familiar figure was projected in the void by the magic treasure projection equipment. It was a face that Wang Ling was very familiar with. That was right. It was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal himself. The alliance of 10,000 schools and the Office of Strategic Deception had jointly designed the competition schedule and activity mechanism for this time's Nine Dragons Mountain National Body Technique Exchange competition. This wasn't a pleasant surprise for Wang Ling ever since grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had become a true venerated. He had been active on almost every occasion, and the Office of Strategic Deception's reputation had spread overseas. As the world's #1 true venerated as well as the sect leader of the #1 sect, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shouldered the heavy responsibility of building up the motherland together. Apart from going out to maintain world peace every now and then, he also took out a few clones to participate in variety shows so that the Office of Strategic Deception's reputation continued to grow. The sect's growing reputation wasn't completely bad for Wang Ling. At the very least, the Office of Strategic Deception now had plenty of money to buy crispy noodle snacks. Wang Ling used the clone Crispy Noodle Dao Monarch to hold the title of leader of the snack group in the sect, and also served as the head of the snack shop. In the air, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's projection looked like a real person descending. He looked very sunny and dignified, fully displaying the atmosphere of the number 1 sect. Many of the students present also witnessed the elegant demeanor of the world's number 1 true venerated. This projection hadn't been recorded in advance, but was a live broadcast, so the moment grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was projected, he immediately saw Wang Ling in the crowd and was in a very good mood. Wow! Is a true venerated so approachable? This is the first time I've seen this great death-courting senior like this. Many of the students discussed in the square formation. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal also began to announce the mechanism of the first elimination round. Students, welcome to the 9 Dragons camp. The first elimination round is called Tower Climb. Everyone needs to climb the 700,000th step within a time limit. 700,000 steps. A lot of people were already a little intimidated. In addition, the competition's budget is limited, so the accommodation is limited. There are only about 400 rooms on the top floor. In addition to climbing to the top, you also need to fight for rooms to ensure that you qualify for the next round. The rooms offer 2 people, and only when both of you are in the room will you qualify. After grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said this, he gave everyone a kind smile. Then the first round officially begins. As soon as he said this, the 32 doors on the bottom floor of the 9 Dragons Pagoda opened to all the students in all directions. Chapter 1133. The 400 rooms at the top of the pagoda meant that 200 people would be directly eliminated in the first elimination round, which was equivalent to the number of members from 20 participating schools. Although this didn't mean that all the participating schools would definitely be wiped out in the first round, there were bound to be schools that would lose members. And it would actually be very difficult for these schools to survive the second round. The importance of unity was self-evident. But it was clear that after the doors at the bottom of the pagoda opened, the future flowers of the cultivation world from all over the country didn't think too much about it. Most of them actually chose to fight their own battles, and were the first to rush up. For a moment, there was a surge of people as immortals from all directions used their body techniques to squeeze through the doors at the bottom of the pagoda. What are you waiting for? It's too late. Seeing that Wang Ling and the others were still standing there in a daze, some of the students from number 59 High Imperial High hurriedly reminded them. However, the scene was really too chaotic. Although number 59 High and number 60 High were allies, they couldn't care less at the moment. Even a foundation establishment cultivator would lose half his life after walking 700,000th step. This kind of intense test was like a fat college student who didn't exercise all year round suddenly being told to run 1,000 meters for a physical test. Just listening to it was stressful enough to make people tremble with fear. But no one wanted to be eliminated in the first round. Thus, after hearing the elimination mechanism for the first round, most people decided to seize the initiative first. The 9-Dragon Pagoda was a spiral staircase, and only by seizing the upper hand and rushing to the front would one be able to take the lead. At that moment, the bottom of the pagoda was packed with people. But Wang Ling also noticed that there were several high schools like them who were observing for the time being and hadn't made a move. Number 1 Devil Subduing High School, Balance Flame High School, South Sea Sky High School and Titan High School, which Headmaster Chen had previously identified as strong enemies, were all currently observing. Striking first and seizing the initiative was naturally an inherent tactic. However, this was a national competition, and participating in such a competition often required breaking out of one's inherent mindset and rethinking things from scratch. Thus, number 60 High's decision to bide their time was in fact in line with Headmaster Chen's strategy at the beginning, which was for them to observe more, think more, and act cautiously, rather than be a bunch of thoughtless boorish fellows like the students charging at the very front. Using normal methods to ascend the 700,000th step would definitely be exhausting. Moreover, considering the continuity of the event, after today's elimination round ended, the main competition would immediately begin the next day. Therefore, there wasn't much time left for everyone to recover their strength. Hence, after grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's announcement, number 60 High was already certain that there had to be a faster way to reach the top. Perhaps there was a barrier at the bottom of the pagoda that led to the top. So, how are we going to get up? Hirogwa asked. I don't think there's a need to rush. Let's observe for a bit longer. To everyone's surprise, Super Chen, who was known for being hot-blooded, was able to calm himself down at a critical moment. This was actually a very important reason why Headmaster Chen had chosen Super Chen. Because Super Chen had entered number 60 high school as a sports specialty student, he had participated in a lot of competitions big and small since he was a child and had seen a lot of big and small scenes. Super Chen had participated in national competitions before, and the team needed this kind of contestant who could stand up at a critical moment and analyze the situation for the entire team based on his experience in previous competitions. While number 60 High's side was discussing this, the students from Titan High School had already taken action. Climbing the stairs was actually quite an injury for Titan High School because they were too heavy. If an accident happened and they tumbled down the stairs while climbing the stairs, the group of people behind them would be done for. The students from Titan High School had clearly considered this point, and their kindness had prevented them from participating in the initial struggle. Titan High School's uniform was very unique. It was made entirely of leather and had quite a unique ornament hanging on it. Spirit beast teeth were embedded into the shoulders. There was also a thick ring of sideburns around the neck, like the mink coat worn by northerners. Then let's get started. At that moment, a young man with a lollipop in his mouth walked at the very front. This was Zhu Hanyun, the team leader of Titan High School. Zhu Hanyun looked very normal, but he was in fact very heavy. Using the king's eye, Wang Ling estimated that Zhu Hanyun already weighed 5,000 jin. To be able to weigh 5,000 jin in year 1 meant that Zhu Hanyun's Titan art had already been cultivated to at least level 4, and he was indeed a rare talent. But even with this much weight, the ground didn't shake at all when Zhu Hanyun walked. He was no different from an ordinary person, which was truly frightening. Walking at the very front, he then stretched out his arm and shouted softly. Everyone watched as his arm actually started to shrink like a spring. He then looked at the cute girl behind him and smiled slightly. "Junior sister, come up first." It was clear that this wasn't the first time a Titan High student had done this. The junior sister behind him understood and took the initiative to walk to the front. However, her steps weren't as steady as Zhu Hanyun's, and the ground trembled very clearly as she walked. "Senior brother, is it really okay?" With the support of a few other students from Titan High School, the little junior sister's feet finally stepped on Zhu Hanyun's retracted arms. "It's fine, junior sister. I'm going to prepare to fire." After Zhu Hanyun said this, 2 more students took the initiative to come behind Zhu Hanyun. They got into positions and leaned over to support Zhu Hanyun's back. Then, Zhu Hanyun silently counted to 3. 3, 2, 1. Boom. Bam. Zhu Hanyun's arms exploded with a deafening sound like that of a missile exploding. The strong shockwave shook the surrounding people unsteadily, and the little junior sister who was standing on Zhu Hanyun's arm was shot out like a steel cannon. This junior sister from Titan High had transformed into a shooting star in the daytime in front of everyone's eyes. Her operation was so shocking that it left everyone dumbfounded. A few minutes later, there was a loud explosion above the 9-dragon pagoda. Then, a lot of broken tiles fell from the sky and smashed on the ground. It was clear that the junior sister had reached the top of the 9-dragon pagoda. Zhu Hanyun had only used 1 shot to send his junior sister straight to the finish line. But this wasn't the end. Zhu Hanyun smiled and then smiled at the junior brothers and sisters behind him. "Quick! Next!" Zhu Hanyun excitedly prepared to fire a second shot. As for the teachers in charge of invigilating the exam, they were already sweating profusely. Now, they didn't doubt that the Titan High students had the ability to reach the top. But the problem was that if this group of people reached the top in this way, this 9-dragon pagoda would probably be blown into a sieve. P.S. The terms of seniority in this chapter are based on age. Zhu Hanyun and the other students who had come to participate were all in their first year, but because Zhu Hanyun was a few months older than the others, he was called senior brother. Chapter 1134. Such a crude method of ascending to the top stunned everyone around them. The students who were already climbing the stairs looked out the window at the meteor streaking past them, and when there was a huge explosion at the top, each and every one of them had utterly stupefied expressions on their faces. "What the hell? What's that? What the hell? A human self-propelled cannon? It's from Titan High. It can actually fly so far? It's definitely Zhu Hanyun's doing. He's the only senior grade 1 student from Titan High who's at warship level. One by one, everyone realized that they had underestimated the power of Titan High's warship-level students. Although Zhu Hanyun was the only one in the team this time, he had shocked everyone enough. And this was just the power of a warship-level student. If a student who had cultivated the Titan art to the level of an aircraft carrier participated in this battle, would they still be able to play in this competition? While everyone was astonished, Zhu Hanyun, who had turned himself into a cannon platform, had already launched a second junior brother up the stairs. Just like the junior sister from before, she was like a fiery meteor, carrying the momentum of crossing mountains and seas, as well as the sea of people. She directly leaped over a total of 700,000 steps and accurately landed at the top of the pagoda. The students who were still climbing the stairs were all horrified, and even the teachers in charge of controlling the field as well as the members of the special forces at the base below were all amazed. Not only was Zhu Hanyun's explosive power extremely strong, even his accuracy was top-notch. The second junior brother who had been launched entered through the hole created by the first junior sister. Whether it was his explosive power, launch angle or accuracy, they were all impeccable. As one of the favorites to win this competition, Titan High had displayed astonishing strength in the first segment. This is too exaggerated. Super Chan and Hirogwa shivered on the side as they looked at the Titan High students, feeling like they were looking at two monsters. For a moment, both of them were a little disheartened. Zhu Hanyun's show of skill here was in fact a way to mess with their mentality. Titan High School's characteristics were very obvious, as were number 1 Devil Subduing High School and Balance Flame High School. In comparison, Super Chan and Hero Gua felt that their number 60 high school was a little inferior. Spirit Sword Study was originally one of number 60 high school's specialties, but whether or not spirit swords could be used in this body technique competition was another matter. In comparison, the support-type spells that Headmaster Chan had given them were indeed too weak. In that instant, Hirogwa even wondered if number 60 high could survive the first round. After sending his junior brother and junior sister to the top one after another, everyone saw Zhu Hanyun's legs begin to contract like springs. Accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, Zhu Hanyun successfully sent himself to the top. This was an unexpected situation. No one would have thought that the bulky Titan High School would be the first team to advance. All of them had survived the first round. It's our turn. At that moment, a few students from number 1 Devil Subduing High suddenly stepped forward. Their black school uniforms were especially obvious, giving off a natural sense of deterrence. The leader is called Gao Tianming. He's the leader of the Devil Subduing Division, said Hero Gua as he stared at the tall and thin boy standing at the very front of number 1 Demon Subduing High School. Gao Tianming, as his name suggested, was very tall. He was nearly 3 meters tall and looked like a walking giant in the crowd. Why is he so tall? Super Chen was a little surprised, but a lot of height was determined by genetics. Super Chen was currently only about 1.75 meters tall, but boys could still grow a little taller at this stage. Perhaps he could join the 180 club in his third year of high school? But while he was looking forward to growing taller, compared with Gao Tianming, Super Chen felt that 3 meters was still a little too much. If this guy was going to find a girlfriend, how tall would he have to be? Otherwise, they would have to squat down to kiss each other when they wanted to be intimate. How tiring would that be? Not only would it be tiring, but his posture would also be very idiotic. At that moment, Gao Tianming was at the forefront, and a group of students from number 1 Devil Subduing High School waited in place for a moment. Suddenly, a burst of spiritual energy erupted from the top of the tower, like ripples caused by a stone thrown into a lake. What now? The students who were climbing the stairs felt the pressure of spirit power above their heads, and were amazed. It's an array. At that moment, Lotus Sun had figured something out. Also, it should be a transmission array. She narrowed her eyes, but couldn't see very clearly. She could only distinguish it from the patterns on the outside of the array based on her experience and intuition. As soon as she said this, Gao Tianming, who was at the front of number 1 Devil Subduing High School, was clearly startled. He glanced at Lotus Sun out of the corner of his eye, then took a step forward with his junior brothers and sisters behind him. At some point, a transmission array had also been set up in front of Gao Tianming, which actually corresponded to the one at the top of the tower. Number 1 Devil Subduing High School directly used the transmission array to become the second team to advance. For a moment, the surrounding students were a little stupefied. How did the people from number 1 Devil Subduing High set up a transmission array at the top? A lot of people didn't understand. They must have used the puppet spell. At least one person from Titan High School is being controlled, and after they went up, they paved the way for number 1 Devil Subduing High School. Number 1 Devil Subduing High School is taking advantage of the east wind to reach the top. Someone made this judgment. For a moment, everyone was talking animatedly, and some of the students who were still climbing the stairs felt the pressure. They hadn't even climbed 50,000 steps, but there were already 2 high schools who had advanced ahead of everyone else. They're too strong. How are we supposed to compete? Don't give up. This is only the first round. There will be all kinds of restrictions in the real battle for survival. Also, I think we should hurry up and discuss our strategy for forming an alliance. First, weaken these strong schools as much as possible, so that we have room to compete. While climbing the stairs, a lot of students were terrified when they saw how strong Titan High School and number 1 Devil Subduing High School were. A lot of the students didn't forget to look for allies and discuss strategies for forming an alliance as they climbed the stairs. It's our turn now, Lotus Sun said after taking a deep breath. What's the plan? Super Chin asked. I've thought of a more labor-saving way, Lotus Sun said. I can use Mysterious Sea's water column to send us up, but because it's a little far away, I might not be able to maintain it with my spirit energy alone. So we'll need everyone to work together. But this is also my first time trying it. If the 10 of us combined don't have enough spirit energy, there's a certain chance that we'll fail and fall off halfway. It's that scary? No problem, just listen to the class monitor. At that moment, Gu Xuanji smiled. Lotus Sun clearly didn't realize that in number 60 high school's team, Wang Zhan, Lu Qingyi, Gu Xuanji and Jin Yuan all had cosmic-level nuclear energy engines. Forget the top of the tower, it wouldn't be a problem even if they were sent to Mars. Apart from these people, there was no need to talk about Wang Ling. Chapter 1135. Lotus Sun's sword-riding ability had already reached the acme of perfection, and she could generally open a sword spirit space. Even if a spirit sword wasn't by her side, she could still summon a sword spirit. Lotus Sun was the only person in number 60 High's elite class who had already nurtured a sword spirit. This was everyone's current understanding. Of course, this understanding obviously didn't include Wang Ling and the others at all. Lotus Sun planned to summon Mysterious Sea to send everyone up in a pillar of water, which would inevitably summon Mysterious Sea's sword spirit. In fact, this was everyone's first time seeing what Mysterious Sea looked like. What does classmate Lotus Sun's sword spirit look like? Has anyone seen it before? Li Yuiwei asked curiously. Mysterious Sea, Mysterious Sea. It sounded like the name of an uncle, but as the saying went, a sword spirit was like its master, and its specific appearance was based on its master's will. Could it be that classmate Lotus Sun was actually a very well-hidden uncle complex? Li Yuiwei didn't think it was impossible. In this era of young male celebrities, a lot of girls were actually already tired of those fair-faced, high-bridged noses, unibrow, and double eyelids male celebrities. On the contrary, the type of handsome uncle might actually be more attractive. But other people also had their own views on what Mysterious Sea looked like. Hero Gua, I've never seen Mysterious Sea before. Come to think of it, don't tell me Mysterious Sea has dead fish eyes? After he said this, the corner of Wang Ling's eye twitched violently. Somehow, he felt that these words seemed to be hinting at something. Lotus Sun deliberately kept him guessing. She closed her eyes and began to sincerely summon Mysterious Sea. As everyone said, Lotus Sun had never shown Mysterious Sea's true appearance to the outside world. Sometimes, she even had Mysterious Sea disguise himself to protect him. But this time, it was the national competition, and so many people were watching. Naturally, Lotus Sun felt that there was no need to hide. She was the team leader this time, and in the face of Zhu Hanyun, the captain of Titan High School, and Gao Tianming, the captain of number 1 Devil Subduing High School, she naturally wouldn't admit defeat so easily. At the very least, she couldn't lose in terms of momentum. The boundless sea surges to the east. Following the incantation, a deep blue light rose behind Lotus Sunday. For a moment, everyone seemed to smell the salty smell of rolling seawater. It was as if they were really at the edge of the sea, and they could vaguely hear the sound of rolling waves. Some of the teachers in charge of crowd control noticed the commotion here, and they all revealed astonished expressions in their hearts. A foundation establishment stage student had already nurtured a sword spirit. They found it unbelievable, and judging from the aura, this sword spirit was clearly not formed recently. It was an old sword spirit, and it exuded a very mature aura. The way to distinguish whether it was a newborn sword spirit was also very simple. A newborn sword spirit was actually like a newborn baby, and its body would emit a scent similar to milk fragrance. However, Mysterious Sea didn't have this smell. After the azure light lasted for a while, a young girl wearing a sea blue dress descended from the sky. Even her hair was dark blue, mixed with a few streaks of silver. She had a youthful and energetic aura. Everyone looked at Mysterious Sea, and a look of sudden realization appeared on their faces. So Mysterious Sea's true form was a young sorceress? This was actually a reasonable result. After all, Mysterious Sea had been born relatively early, and Lotus Sun hadn't been very old at the time. Turning into a young sorceress was probably something every girl would think about in their childhood. Seeing Mysterious Sea's appearance, Wang Ling suddenly thought of a very old term, Kullet card. At the very least, for people of Wang Ling's age, this term was probably a childhood memory. Then everyone, please lend me your spirit energy. Lotus Sun smiled. Lu Qingyi and Li Yuiwei were the first to step forward and take her hand, while the boys behind them put their hands on the shoulders of the person in front of them. This was actually the same posture that two Chinibu teenagers would take when they finished watching a Wuxia novel, and it also had an indescribable sense of age. Super Chen felt a little ashamed. He put one hand on Li Yuiwei's right shoulder and covered his face with the other. Everyone, stand firm. After a moment of preparation, Lotus Sun silently recited the incantation again, and Mysterious Sea began to erupt with powerful spirit power. A huge column of water rose up from under the number 60 high students' feet like a fountain. Then there was a loud bang. With a loud bang, a huge pillar of water shot up into the sky. We did it! Lotus Sun was overjoyed. She had thought that the spirit energy of 10 people might not be enough, but in the end, it was actually so orderly. Very quickly, the water column from number 60 high also attracted the attention of countless people. The students who were climbing the stairs were once again attracted by the water column. Everyone was horrified. What the hell? Which high school is this? What an ugly school uniform. There's even the word, elite, printed on the back. Why does it look like number 60 high to me? Someone tried hard to distinguish the number 60 high students who flashed by the window. It's number 60 high. Audiobook graduated from this school. But I remember that number 60 high's overall ranking isn't high. Why is it so awesome? Someone was puzzled. The students on the stairs immediately let out extremely lemony noises. Awesome! Their team leader is Lotus Sun, and she's the only one who's a little awesome. The others are just so-so, and can't compare to Titan subduing Devil. Someone snorted disdainfully. Because number 60 high's overall ranking wasn't high, the students who were still climbing the stairs didn't want to admit that this group of number 60 high students could surpass them no matter what. Number 60 high? Why? A cultivation school that wasn't even a key city high school. But as sour as they were, they also felt very helpless in the face of the truth. No one had expected number 60 high to be this dark horse. No one could have imagined that a high school that had always been at the bottom of the district rankings would actually make a name for itself in the first round of the national competition. It was at that moment that there was another loud bang in the air. Some of the students who were climbing up the stairs swayed along with the violent tremors and almost fell down the stairs. What's going on now? Someone was puzzled. It's Titan High. And number 1 Devil subduing High. It looks like they're attacking number 60 High. After someone said that, everyone turned their gazes out the window and craned their necks to look up. The two schools that had already reached the top floor seemed to really be launching an attack on number 60 high, which was trying to reach the top floor. Dazzling spirit light of all colors surged up, and wave after wave of magic attacks headed straight for number 60 high's rising water column. Chapter 1136. Wang Ling had already anticipated that Titan High and Devil Subduing High would make a move on them as they advanced. In fact, this was based on the tactical arrangements that the headmasters of the two schools had made for number 60 High. In theory, a cultivation school like number 60 High, which didn't have a high overall ranking, wouldn't be targeted by devil-subduing High and Titan High, which were the favorites to win the championship. However, in terms of strategy, the students of the two schools ultimately listened to their headmaster's suggestions. As an old acquaintance of number 60 High's headmaster Chen Tianxiang, number 1 devil-subduing High's headmaster Li Qingxi had formulated a detailed targeted strategy, which included suppressing number 60 High in the first round of the knockout round. Although number 60 High was currently suffering from interference from devil-subduing High and Titan High, it was very clear that these two high schools had yet to form a true alliance. This could be seen from the way they cast their spells. The students of the two high schools were practically fighting on their own without any cooperation to speak of. In the sky, spirit power bombs and fireballs were continuously thrown at number 60 High's water column. Mysterious Sea either opened a water shield to block them or changed their paths to deflect them. In fact, Lotus Sun was already on guard against the focus fire from the two high schools, but she also realized that it seemed hard to rely on Mysterious Sea's strength alone to overcome the current situation. These people are really... As class monitor, she was naturally anxious. Two schools that were hot favorites to win the championship were focusing fire at the same time, which was a little like bullying. Wang Ling was a little tempted to make a move. The situation was actually very simple. He just needed to play a small trick and set up a rebound field. But Feng Xing didn't give him a chance at all. Feng Xing twisted his neck, and several glittering and translucent snake scales that were almost invisible to the naked eye instantly peeled off his body. These were magic treasures which he had inherited from immortal Shi Pai. They moved abnormally fast, and he rushed to the front to resist the focus fire from the two high schools. Almost all the ball-type spells were sent flying by his snake scales. This time, it was Zhu Hanyun of Titan High and Gao Tianming of Devil-subduing High who were astonished. Number 60 High was indeed more resilient than they had imagined. The point was that they didn't understand how the spells had been sent flying at all. Mysterious Sea's strength alone shouldn't have been enough to support the focus fire from the two schools. At that moment, in an eggshell-shaped building not far from the Nine-Dragon Pagoda, the headmasters of the various schools and the people in charge of this event had all gathered. This was a temporary activity command center. The chief commander this time was President Qi, one of the 10 generals. The deputy commander was President Qi's Shifu and the current chief protector of Nine Dragon Mountain's heavenly vein, Huang Feng. Although old Huang was not one of the 10 generals, everyone was well aware of his identity. How could the master of the 10 generals be an ordinary person? Moreover, Elder Huang had also been sent to oversee the competition. This seemed to confirm the rumors that had been spreading recently, that someone was trying to make a move against the Heavenly Vein's main valve in the national competition. Although this matter has not yet been confirmed. However, old Huang's appearance was enough to explain the problem. After Feng Xing made his move, most of the headmasters saw through Snake Scale's trick. Most of the principals present were itinerant immortals, so it was impossible that they didn't even have this little bit of insight. What's the background of this male student? Huang Feng stared at the screen curiously. Teacher, this is the child left behind by Snakeskin back then, President Qi whispered in his ear. So, it's him. Realization dawned on old Huang. Huang Feng had naturally heard about Feng Xing. Back then, immortal Shi Pai had given birth to a child before he was executed, and this child was Feng Xing. This incident had caused a huge uproar back then, and many people had thought that Feng Xing should be dealt with as well. In the end, however, Feng Xing had still been spared. In the blink of an eye, however, Huang Feng had never expected Feng Xing to be so big, which made him a little sad. But a lot of people actually didn't know the truth behind immortal Shi Pai's incident back then. President Qi had expected Feng Xing, his biological son, to appear here and be the subject of much discussion. Sure enough, after President Qi and Huang Feng explained his identity, there were a lot of objections from the headmasters behind them. Immortal Shi Pai's child? Why can he participate in the competition? How did he pass the audit? That immortal Shi Pai is the old devil's disciple. He was a great villain back then. Silence. President Qi cleared his throat. After a moment, old Huang said slowly, "Don't mention this again. Since student Feng is allowed to participate, it's enough to prove that he has already passed all the audits. As far as I know, student Feng has been strictly supervised by Huaxiu Alliance since he was a child. Are all of you trying to slap Huaxiu Alliance in the face by questioning him here?" The command center instantly fell deathly silent. At this point, the headmasters behind them knew that they had misspoken, and they obediently shut their mouths and didn't say another word. On the other side, seeing that number 60 high was about to reach the top, the Devil Subduing School and Titan High School students finally gave up on relentlessly attacking them, and just spoke in puzzled voices. Strange. Why do I feel like there's an extra force fighting us? Gao Tianming muttered as he gazed down. He felt that there was something strange there, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. As expected, there are hidden dragons and crouching tigers in number 60 high's team. It's not just Lotus Sun. The others are also tricky to deal with. At that moment, a young man from Devil Subduing School stepped forward and said, "It's just that we don't know who else is stronger." He calmly analyzed the situation. There are 4 transfer students in number 60 high's team this time. They don't have any background, but there might be hidden experts among them. As for the others, that muscle man is a sports specialist, and his family runs a body techniques dojo. He has experience in competitions, but it seems that he's never won the championship. People call him the Eternal Second. There's also that fatty called Hero Gua. His family runs a pet shop. It's said that there's a parrot that's very tricky, but I haven't seen where it is yet. But I think it can be summoned with a psychic spell. What about the others? I don't really know that Xia Ming. There was a rumor about him and Lotus Sun a while ago. And that Li Yuiwei with her ponytail. Her family runs a restaurant. The class monitor of number 60 high's elite class, Class 2. Feng Xing is also in Class 2. He transferred to number 60 high midway through senior grade 1, and his family runs a noodle shop. After going through everyone in number 60 high's team, number 1 Devil Subduing School felt that there were all kinds of strange things in number 60 high's team, and there didn't seem to be any particularly strong experts. If they really had to suspect someone, they would have to pick one of the 4 transfer students. After a round of analysis, Gao Tianming took a deep breath and finally turned his gaze to Wang Ling. "Then what about this dead fish eye?" "Oh, I've seen him before. I kind of have an impression of him." The young man replied, "Number 60 high brings him to all competitions. I heard that he's number 60 high's mascot, so it shouldn't be a big problem." "I see." Gao Tianming nodded and gradually relaxed. Chapter 1137. Number 60 high didn't forget their alliance with number 59 high. After they reached the top, they drew up a teleportation array and summoned the students from number 59 high down below. "Why is it just you guys?" Super Chen asked as he stared at Tang Jingza, He Buffing and a few familiar faces in the teleportation array. "Those transfer students from Imperial High are too fast." He Buffing didn't say anything. Those transfer students were new. While they were very strong, it was clear that they hadn't fully integrated into the group yet. As soon as the whistle blew for the competition, they didn't listen to the strategy at all, and started to recklessly climb the stairs with the crowd. As a result, number 59 high had lost 4 people by the time they reached the top. But He Buffing didn't think it would be a big problem overall. These students from Imperial High were strong enough that they wouldn't be eliminated in the first round. Just like that, number 59 high and number 60 high, 2 schools that didn't have high overall rankings, actually advanced. Furthermore, no one expected number 60 high to be the 3rd team to advance to the first round. Such a fierce momentum was astonishing. Those who reached the top first naturally had the advantage of priority in choosing rooms. But it wasn't like number 60 high didn't have a problem. Because the rooms were all double rooms, according to the rules, only when both of them confirmed their rooms would they qualify for the second round. The problem number 60 high was facing now was that there were 10 of them and 5 rooms, but there were 3 girls. Did they have to share a room with a boy and a girl? This might cause a misunderstanding. Fortunately, number 59 high was also facing the same problem. "How are we going to live here?" Li Yuiwei asked. He Buffing thought for a bit, then replied, "We also have 3 girls this time, but 2 of them are from Imperial High. They're still climbing the stairs. How about one of you join us?" After saying that, he pushed forward a short-haired girl with dyed blonde hair, who looked a little scary with a fierce expression on her face. "Let me introduce you. This is my cousin He Chun. She might look like a boy, but she's actually a little girl." As soon as He Buffing finished speaking, He Chun directly punched He Buffing's stomach. Just like that, He buffing vomited blood. Blood directly dripped from the corners of his lips. Are you okay? It's fine, I'm used to it. After turning over a new leaf, he buffing maintained a gentle smile no matter where or when. Everyone. On number 60 High's side, Lotus Sun and Li Yuiwei were worried. He-chan's personality was too fiery, and she gave off the aura of a bad girl. It would be a little scary to live with her. But in the end, the issue of dormitory allocation was happily resolved. Li Yuiwei and Lotus Sun were assigned to the same room. Then, Lu Qingyi and He-chan were assigned to the same room. This was the result of Lu Qingyi's initiative. Of course, this wasn't without conditions. The prerequisite was that Lotus Sun promised Lu Qingyi to give her a platinum membership card for the Conch Lady restaurant chain, which would give her a 20% discount. For Lu Qingyi, there was no better deal than this at the moment. On the side, Wang Zhan was envious. He also wanted a discount card. Thus he yelled at He-chan, "Can't I sleep with you?" Then, a fist landed on Wang Zhan's abdomen. However, this punch was from He buffing. After being a delinquent for a long time, there were times when there would be conditioned reflexes. However, Wang Zhan really deserved a beating. After all, Wang Zhan had been beaten up since he was young. He exuded a despicable aura from head to toe. In the end, among the boys, Wang Zhan was the only one who partnered up with number 59 high school, and lived with He buffing. He buffing's reason was that he was worried that Wang Zhan was plotting something against his little sister. This reason could be said to be impeccable, and no one present could refute it. In the end, the allocation for the boys was Wang Ling and Feng Xing Gu Xuanji and Jin Yuan, Super Chen and Hero Gua, Tang Jingze and Xia Ming. But number 59 High still lacked 4 transfer students from Imperial High. Although the accommodation had already been allocated, they still had to help reserve a room in advance, just in case. Thus, the two schools worked together and sent Wang Ling, He buffing, Wang Zhan and Super Chen to occupy a room. At that moment, Wang Ling was alone in an empty room, and he seemed a little unbearably lonely. But Wang Ling had a strong feeling that the first round of the knockout round wasn't going to be that simple. At 22:32 in the evening, as the last student checked into the dormitory, the first round of advancement was announced. Everyone from number 59 high school and number 60 high school had advanced, and no one had been eliminated, which was a good thing. However, the truly intense part had yet to begin, and the second round of elimination would begin at 1 o'clock in the morning. That was to say, for most of the students participating in the competition, especially those who had climbed up the stairs, they practically didn't even have time to rest. They had just participated in such an intense activity, and had less than 2 hours to rest. For a moment, a lot of people complained. This time is too short. They really don't see us as human beings. Being a student is still a blessing, but it's only after graduating from university that you complain about it. Do you know what it means to graduate 985, work 996, persuade to quit 035, resign 251, and defend your rights 404? Someone mentioned a very popular topic on the internet recently. This topic revolved around an employee who had applied to the company for compensation before leaving, but in the end, the company had sued the employee for extortion. And then there was no then. The employee had been directly arrested and locked up for a full 251 days before being found innocent and released, and had received an additional 100,000 yuan as compensation from the state. The whole story might not have been as simple as it seemed, and the interests involved might have been tangled and complicated. However, the arrogance of large enterprises that were supported by their customers had already left a deep-rooted impression on people. So now that they thought about it carefully, being a student was still the happiest. There was no more time to complain. The second round of elimination would begin at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the main competition would officially begin at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. No one knew exactly what the second round of elimination would be about. It was said that grenade-throwing senior immortal would make another announcement at 1 o'clock in the morning. Wang Ling waited in his room as the minutes ticked by. He was very satisfied with Feng Xing's unexpected silence. This was a qualified roommate. Although Feng Xing would steal glances at him from time to time, at least he wasn't bothering him. When it was close to 0:55, Wang Ling's ears twitched, because there was a girl's scream in the corridor. Startled by the scream, a lot of people opened their doors to see a Titan High boy lying in a pool of blood. A girl was crying as she hugged him. Everyone, come and help me. Senior brother really can't hold on much longer. Amid the girl's sobs, everyone gradually gathered around and saw the dead boy's face clearly. Zhu Hanyun. How could it be him? A lot of people covered their mouths in astonishment, dumbstruck. Chapter 1138. Zhu Hanyun was dead. No one had expected something like this to happen at such a heavily guarded National Cultivation High School Body Technique competition. Hadn't they said at the start that they would ensure everyone's safety? Seeing Zhu Hanyun lying in a pool of blood, all the students revealed looks of panic. Not only had someone died, it was an expert. This was Zhu Hanyun, the team leader of Titan High School's team. The man who had thrown all his junior brothers and sisters from the bottom of the tower all the way up 700,000 steps on his own. More and more people gathered to watch. Amidst their intense fear, the surrounding students heard the wailing junior sister of Titan High School off to the side. Everyone was instantly at a loss and didn't know what to do. If you want to get the teachers, come over here. Hurry up and save him. Someone said calmly. There's no hope. At that moment, an extremely tall boy crouched down and confirmed Zhu Hanyun's death. There don't seem to be any external injuries. The spirit root in his dantian must have ruptured, causing massive bleeding. The blood is flowing out of his abdomen. He's really dead. Everyone looked panicked. When someone died in the competition, everyone's first reaction was naturally to get the teachers to take charge. However, the students who had run out to look for the teachers quickly discovered something unexpected. The windows are locked. And it looks like there's a restriction array set up. Our spirit energy is restricted. We can't get out at all. The hole from before has been filled up. Someone cried out. The hole he was referring to was the one that Zhu Hanyun had smashed open when he had thrown the student. But now, the hole had been completely filled up while the students were resting in their rooms. In other words, there was no way for them to inform the teachers outside of the situation. What should we do? Can this competition still go on with someone dead? That's Zhu Hanyun. If the murderer is among us, who can stand up to him if he goes berserk? Also, it's already past 2 o'clock. Wasn't the second elimination round supposed to be announced at this time? For a moment, the crowd was abuzz with discussion as everyone expressed their opinions. Calm down, everyone. At that moment, Gu Xuanji stepped forward. Calm down, everyone. Maybe the second round has already started. Everyone. Already started? What did that mean? Under normal circumstances, if someone really died, it's impossible for the teacher not to notice. Unless Zhu Hanyun's death was already planned. Gu Xuanji analyzed calmly. In fact, he had already seen some clues, but it was not convenient for him to point it out directly, so he guided the crowd here. Perhaps the rule of the second elimination round is to let all of us find Zhu Hanyun's murderer. When everyone heard this, realization dawned on their faces. However, when they looked at Zhu Hanyun's corpse that was still warm on the ground, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. If this was the content of the second elimination round, it was a little too cruel. It actually killed one person? At that moment, Gao Tianming, the captain of No. 1 Devil Subduing High, spoke again. This person isn't Zhu Hanyun. It wasn't Zhu Hanyun, but what did it mean? Everyone was dumbfounded. Zhu Hanyun cultivates the Titan art, and he has long since reached a weight of 5,000 kilograms. But the Zhu Hanyun lying here now. Gao Tianming casually flipped over Zhu Hanyun's corpse. Everyone can see that his body is very light. So in response to this situation, Gao Tianming thought of a possibility, but just as he was about to voice his opinion, on the other side, Gu Xuanji abruptly answered, the construction spell. After Gu Xuanji said this, Gao Tianming gave him a look. God knew that this was one of No. 60 High's transfer students. His origins were unknown, but it was clear that he wasn't an ordinary person. The construction spell was a relatively advanced spell that one could usually only come into contact with in university. Thus, Gao Tianming kept quiet and started to listen carefully to Gu Xuanji's explanation. He wanted to hear what else Gu Xuanji had to say. After almost rushing to answer, Gu Xuanji also felt that he had stood out a little too much. He shouldn't have opened his mouth so early. In fact, this was also an occupational hazard. As the keeper of cosmic order, Gu Xuanji had a lot of things to investigate, and naturally had to investigate some bizarre cases. Thus, he had a lot of experience in deducing cases. Furthermore, with his identity as an experienced keeper of cosmic order, he actually didn't need to turn over the body to already see that there were traces of the construction spell on Zhu Hanyun's corpse. But since he had already spoken, there was actually no need to continue pretending. Gu Xuanji could only continue. The construction spell is a spell that combines the spirit and space spells. Although space spells are very rare, the construction spell is actually the simplest of them all. It can transform spirit energy into an image in the spirit world, and then project it as a physical object. However, the projected object can actually be touched. It will usually slowly disappear within 5 hours. Nowadays, this spell is mostly used in the filming of movies and TV series in the cultivation world. It's a spell that almost every prop master must learn, because not only can it save money, it can also save a lot of time in making props. In summary, the corpse we're looking at now isn't the real Zhu Hanyun. This is just a prop created by someone using the construction spell. But where the real Zhu Hanyun is, we still need to find out. You mean, Zhu Hanyun isn't dead? Then what else is there to look for? This might just be a prank. Someone said at this time. That's not true. Gu Xuanji shook his head. The construction spell can't construct illusory things. For example, prop masters who know the construction spell have to stare at a picture when they construct, or construct and replicate the real thing. So, Zhu Hanyun might not really be dead, but he is indeed lying in a pool of blood. There's no doubt about that. After Gu Xuanji finished speaking, the atmosphere that had eased up began to become tense again. But the problem in front of everyone now was that if they really wanted to find the murderer who hid the real Zhu Hanyun, then they would have to prove their alibis one by one. But now, apart from the missing Zhu Hanyun, there were a total of 799 students. It was obviously unrealistic to prove their alibis one by one. Therefore, Gu Xuanji decided to do a method of elimination. Now, those who can find companions to testify to each other, raise your hands. Also, students with perception-type abilities, please take a step forward. Now, we need everyone to work together to get through this. Why look for perception-type abilities? Actually, the answer was very simple. After a cultivator used a spell, there would definitely be residual spirit energy molecules left on their hands. These spirit energy molecules would overflow and usually remain in the palm of their hands. Usually, they would gradually dissipate within 30 minutes. As long as these perception-type students were investigated and tested one by one, a large number of people would be quickly filtered out. And those who had used a spell within 30 minutes were all suspected of using the construction spell. Sogu website. Chapter 1139. At the same time, in the command center, the headmasters of the various schools were also discussing this murder in the 9-Dragon Pagoda. This wasn't the content of the second elimination round. According to the original plan, the second elimination round would leave a limited number of advancement orbs on the 700,000th step. Only those who grabbed the orbs would be able to advance to the next round. Now that the rules of the knockout round had been changed and someone had been injured, the headmasters present naturally felt anxious. Among them, the most restless person was Lu Tian, the headmaster of Titan High School. President Qi, if this corpse was created using a construction spell, then where is our school's Zhu Hanyun now? Headmaster Lu Tian, who had been kept in the dark until now, summoned up his courage to ask President Qi. Don't worry, Headmaster Lu, student Zhu is very safe now. He's being protected. Furthermore, the rule for this round is that as long as we can catch the murderer, everyone can advance. It's just that this murderer is still in the team. This will test the students' reasoning ability. We can only wait and see for now. If we act hastily, we'll only alert the enemy, President Qi said. But this explanation still left the headmasters present baffled. But after listening to President Qi's words, everyone's tense hearts relaxed a little. It seemed that this was something that had been arranged by the higher-ups. Since that was the case, it naturally wasn't convenient for them to ask too much. Sitting in the conference seats at the back, the headmasters stared at the image of the 9-Dragon Pagoda on the big screen in front of them, their own thoughts running through their minds. At a time like this, it was easy to slip up if one spoke too much. As headmasters, they had to learn to figure out the higher-ups' intentions on their own, and not just rely on asking questions. Old Chen, what do you think of this? On the other side, Headmaster Li Qingxi of No. 1 Devil Subduing High smiled slightly as he stared at the screen, as if he had already figured out something. Headmaster Li already knows the answer, so why ask me? No. 60 High School's Headmaster Chen laughed. Your school's Gao Tianming is really good. He's even the team leader this time. It seems that he's your favorite disciple. Gao Tianming is indeed a good seedling. I plan to personally take him in as my disciple after he graduates from high school. Being praised by Headmaster Chen, Headmaster Li Qingxi immediately felt proud. When he came back to his senses, he found that the cunning Chen Tianxiang did not seem to answer his question. He asked again, Old Chen, don't interrupt me. Tell me what you think. I want to know if you think the same as me. This kind of behavior was actually a bit like a scene where two top students who had just finished an exam were comparing their answers. Headmaster Chen had been the gold medal support player among the many headmasters back then. He had an overall view of the big picture and an understanding of the overall situation that other headmasters could not compare to. This was also the reason why Headmaster Li Qingxi was so persistent in his questioning. Student Zhu Hanyun's death was obviously a trap set up by the higher-ups, and it was clearly targeted at a certain person. He naturally couldn't come to a conclusion just by looking at the current situation, but if he combined it with the first elimination round, Headmaster Chen suddenly had a bold idea. There were so many ways to test the students, so why did they have to climb the 700,000 steps? There was only one answer. Hypnosis. In the end, Headmaster Chen still revealed the core of the entire setup. Hearing this, Headmaster Li Qingxi breathed a long sigh of relief in his heart. Headmaster Chen's judgment was about the same as his. The purpose of the 700,000th spiral staircase was to hypnotize the students while they were walking down the spiral staircase. Of course, there were also students who hadn't been hypnotized. They were from No. 1 Devil Subduing High School, Titan High School, Balance Flame High School and No. 60 High School. They had all reached the top directly using their own methods and hadn't taken the stairs. Hypnosis often required some special psychological hints in a specific environment to be carried out, and it was not an easy task to hypnotize hundreds of students. So this had probably been planned before the start of the competition. As for the students who had reached the top directly and hadn't been hypnotized in the first round, Headmaster Chen guessed that they had probably used an extra method to hypnotize them individually. In short, everyone was now in a state of hypnosis. Apart from Wang Ling, Wang Zhen, Lu Qingyi, Gu Xuanji, Jin Yuan and Fang Xing, they were all faking it. So what was the next step after hypnotizing so many students? As the golden assistant, Headmaster Chen naturally had his own guess. Dream-building master. This was another new keyword. Hearing this, Li Qingxi's heart settled. Sure enough. At that moment, the two of them were completely on the same page. After hypnotizing so many students, the next step was naturally to construct a dream. And there was actually one person present who could do this. That was President Qi, the wisdom saint. So everything that everyone was seeing now had been constructed. It wasn't just Zhu Hanyun's corpse. All the 800 students in the 9-Dragon Pagoda who were currently participating in the competition, including Zhu Hanyun himself, had in fact already fallen into a dream after advancing to the first round. On the other side, the investigation led by Gu Xuanji was progressing smoothly. Wang Ling silently watched Gu Xuanji operate from the back, and at the same time was well aware that they had fallen into an official setup. The students present were all at the foundation establishment stage. Compared with ordinary people, cultivators had a more stable mind, and the actual steps of hypnosis were much more complicated. The 700,000 step was the key. This was the prerequisite for most students to be directly hypnotized into a dream. As for Wang Ling and the other students who hadn't come up the stairs, President Qi had pretended to arrange room service to hypnotize them individually. Of course, what the officials didn't know was that this level of hypnosis had no effect on Wang Ling. A dream-building master wasn't a rare profession in the current cultivation world, but to be able to make so many people fall for it at the same time, this dream-building master had to have powerful mental strength. Since Wang Ming hadn't come to the scene, the only person who could do it was naturally President Qi. At that moment, Wang Ling quietly watched Gu Xuanji's performance. After the first round of investigations, Gu Xuanji had already eliminated nearly 90% of the students. Among the remaining students, there were students from No. 1 Devil Subduing High School, Titan High School, Balance Flame High School and South Sea Sky High School. Gu Xuanji smiled gently and stared at one of the boys from South Sea Sky High School. Explain yourselves. What were you all doing earlier? Who are you? What right do you have to control us? The boy was clearly a little unhappy to be listed as a suspect. He didn't know Gu Xuanji's background, and at the same time, he despised No. 60 high in his heart. A school that didn't have a high overall ranking had actually taken the lead in this case? What right did they have to do that? I hope you'll cooperate with the investigation, otherwise your fate will be very tragic. Gu Xuanji warned in a soft voice. His voice wasn't loud, but an incomparably shocking mental strength swept through the boy's mind. The boy from South Sea Sky High was stupefied on the spot. He felt as if his head had exploded, and he looked at Gu Xuanji as if he were looking at a devil. In the end, he was so scared that he burst into tears on the spot. Wang Ling sighed behind him. Sure enough, Gu Xuanji was still too young when it came to keeping a low profile. There were times when an appropriate display of strength was necessary, but Gu Xuanji had clearly used too much force just now. This group of people were learning from him. Not only did they want to learn how to keep a low profile, but they also wanted to learn how to control their strength and control their score. Chapter 1140. Under immense mental pressure, the boy from South Sea Sky High's eyes instantly reddened, and then he couldn't stop his tears no matter how hard he tried. It was indeed very shameful for a boy to cry in front of so many people, but this boy was also in despair. He didn't know why Gu Xuanji looked so frightening, who could make him cry with just one glare. When the boy gradually calmed down, he recalled that he had actually cried in front of so many people, and instantly felt a wave of sorrow welling up in his heart, and he cried even more miserably. Gu Xuanji realized that he had gone too far, and immediately started chanting the Spiritual Meditation Sutra, which he had independently developed, to help the boy control his emotions. The magical effect of this mental cultivation method was that it had the ability to radiate. As long as someone circulated it, the people around the user would also become calm and composed. Then, they would automatically enter sage mode and instantly delete all the filthy, colorful clips from the phone. Calm down. Right now, we haven't confirmed whether you're a suspect or not. We have to catch the murderer to advance to the next round, and we don't have much time left. If you're not the murderer, all the more you need to cooperate. Helpless, Gu Xuanji could only comfort the boy. What Gu Xuanji needed to learn and work hard to do now was to be patient. The truth was that studying under Wang Ling at No. 60 High School would be of great help to Gu Xuanji's future mission related to the only koi fish in the cultivation world. Quietly working on the Spiritual Meditation Sutra, the boy from South Sea Sky High finally calmed down. He felt that what Gu Xuanji said made sense. Now, including him, there were still 10 suspects left. Cooperating with the investigation was the fastest way to clear suspicion and find the real murderer. Seeing that the boy had wiped away his tears, Gu Xuanji guided him in a gentle tone. Tell me, what did you do with magic in the past 30 minutes? Gu Xuanji had previously gathered the students of the perception department and had them use their abilities to search for people who had used magic in the past 30 minutes. Then, he would use the elimination method to eliminate those who had evidence of using healing spells to heal their companions. Now, as long as the remaining 10 suspects could clearly explain what they had done with magic before and clear the logical lines, they would be able to be identified as suspects. Thus, the boy who had been scared to tears by Gu Xuanji earlier spoke first. I'm Nan Ishio, a high school student from South Sea Sky High. Before I discovered Zhu Hanyun's body, I used a sensing technique. Perception technique? Gu Xuanji smiled slightly. Is there anything more specific? Nan Ishio blushed when he was asked this question. Realization suddenly dawned on everyone. It seemed that this boy had used his perception type spell to do some unspeakable things. Nan Ishio. Actually, I didn't want to do anything bad. It's just that in the process of gathering information, I suddenly became a little curious. Gu Xuanji smiled. Your only option now is to explain everything that happened. Nan Ishio knew he couldn't escape. It's like this. It's normal to gather information during the competition, right? This is the advantage of our South Sea Sky High School. Our South Sea Sky High School is famous for our perception-type magic. That's why I'm planning to take advantage of everyone's resting time to gather some information. Then, I accidentally saw some female high school students. Everyone instantly let out, "Oh," noises. Many of the boys sighed in their hearts at the convenience of perception-type magic. They didn't even need to look for a website, and could directly watch a live broadcast. But the truth was that Wuxia Alliance had also issued a lot of restrictions on perception-type cultivators. Most cultivators now had anti-intrusion systems installed in their homes. In other words, if a cultivator tried to sense something, the anti-intrusion system would sound an alarm. Using perception to spy on someone else's privacy was illegal. But in the context of a competition, no one would dwell on this issue. At most, it would be a bit of moral condemnation. A lot of the boys were filled with righteous indignation. "How could you watch by yourself? Why didn't you bring me along?" Nan Ishio couldn't help blushing as everyone pointed at him. "I really just wanted to get some information from the start, but I didn't expect the people next door to be students from 8th Jade Girls High School. Gushuanji, 8th Jade Girls High School." At that moment, Gao Tianming, who had been watching the whole time, suddenly spoke up. "A girls' school famous for cultivating the Jade Girls Heart Sutra. The Jade Girls Heart Sutra gives two people a powerful self-healing ability, which is 8th Jade Girls High School's advantage." Jade Girls Heart Sutra? Isn't it supposed to be a boy and a girl cultivating it? No, the cultivation method has already been improved. Two girls can also cultivate it. There's no need to borrow the strength of a boy. The method is still the same, just two people taking off their clothes and making a human pyramid. Everyone. When Gao Tianming said this, Nan Ishio's face turned even redder. He had never expected to see such an erotic scene the first time he spied on military intelligence. While his thoughts were running wild, Nan Ishio expressed that he immediately stopped the evil thoughts and wanted to go out to calm down. "I wanted to go out and calm down at the time. You know, I'm not the kind of person who likes to peep. Also, I was wondering if I should go next door and apologize." Nan Ishio rubbed the back of his head a little embarrassedly. Gushuanji said, "Go on." Nan Ishio continued to talk about his experience. "But I never expected to see Zhu Hanyun lying on the ground after I went out." "You saw him lying on the ground when you went out?" "That's right. From afar, I saw someone lying on the ground in front of the room where Zhu Hanyun had fallen, and the door was tightly shut. I walked in and saw that it was Zhu Hanyun. I thought he was having an argument with his roommate and was going to sleep outside." "There was no blood at the time?" Gu Shuanji asked for details. "No blood." Nan Ishio shook his head. Gu Shuanji instantly understood. If Zhu Hanyun hadn't been bleeding at the time, then there was only one answer. Zhu Hanyun had been knocked unconscious when the construction spell had been used. That meant that Zhu Hanyun had only been unconscious when the construction spell had been constructed. Now that Zhu Hanyun was lying in a pool of blood, someone had definitely tampered with this constructed prop. At that moment, Nan Ishio added more details. "I was terrified at the time and wanted to call someone over to check on the situation. But when I thought about how I was the first to see Zhu Hanyun fall to the ground, if someone suspected me of knocking him out, I really wouldn't be able to explain myself. I might even be disqualified." Gu Shuanji raised his eyebrows. "So what did you do?" "I used the wood transformation spell to turn my right arm into wood, then pinched Zhu Hanyun's neck, leaving sawdust behind. I planned to frame number 1 demon subduing high school. They're good at using puppets, so it's normal for them to leave sawdust behind." After Nan Ishio said that, several students from number 1 demon subduing high school were instantly flustered and exasperated. "You're too vicious." A student from number 1 demon subduing high school stepped forward and snorted. "Don't talk about other people. You're also a suspect." Gu Shuanji stared at the young man. Nan Ishio's done explaining. "Tell me, what did you do?" The young man pursed his lips, but finally decided to tell the truth under Gao Tianming's gaze. "When I arrived at the scene, there was no one around Zhu Hanyun. And he wasn't bleeding, but I saw the sawdust on his neck. I thought someone from our school had gotten into an argument with him and knocked him out. Then What did you do?" Everyone's eyes grew curious. I used the Starfire spell to set the sawdust on fire, and planned to give it to Balance Flame Middle School. In any case, they've always been good at throwing fireballs. If there were burn marks on his body, they would be the first to suspect them. Furthermore, they could perfectly cover up the sawdust. Everyone, Gu Xuanji, Wang Ling. Hearing this, almost everyone was a little stupefied. That was to say, Zhu Hanyun's corpse, which had been constructed using the construction spell, had already been strangled and set on fire. However, these two events still didn't explain where on earth the blood had come from. Who knew what Zhu Hanyun had experienced before he collapsed in a pool of blood? Chapter 1141. The interrogation continued. The next person to step forward was from Balance Flame High School. My name is Zhong Yuni, from Balance Flame Middle School. When I went to the washroom, I found this man lying here, and he seemed to have been hit by the Starfire spell. I don't know who framed us. I didn't know who was trying to frame us, but after discussing it with my senior brother, I decided to do it. Gu Xuanji stared at Zhong Yuni and said, "Go on." Student Zhong Yuni told the truth. While the Starfire spell ignited the wood shavings, it wasn't fatal. So after some calculations, we immediately calculated the core-piercing punch from Northern Fist High School and punched Zhu Hanyun in the abdomen. Everyone was horrified. Nani Xiao, who had been the first to confess, hadn't expected the guys who came later to be more vicious than the other, to dare go to this extent. The wear-piercing fist was one of the basic martial arts of Northern Fist High School. The spiritual root was like the wick of a cultivator, and the so-called wear-piercing fist was a fist technique that could cause penetrative damage to the spiritual root. If the strength was a little bit too much, it could be fatal. In a flash, Zhong Yuni's suspicion grew. But Zhong Yuni had another explanation for the bleeding. We calculated it, and this punch was just calculated by the people from Balance Flame High School. It was just a move to frame someone, and there was no way they could have learned it so well in such a short time. They could only imitate 60 to 70% of it, and they wouldn't have been very strong. So we only intended to leave a trace of the core-piercing punch, but didn't want to kill Zhu Hanyun. It also couldn't have caused the spiritual root to bleed. Zhong Yuni's explanation still couldn't completely dispel suspicion, but Gu Xuanji didn't think Zhong Yuni was lying. This group of people from Balance Flame High School was a standard straight-A student who had to calculate the trajectory of a parabola when throwing a fireball. If this group of people had made a move, they must have done precise calculations. So if Zhong Yuni wasn't lying, then the bleeding in the spiritual root must have been the result of someone trying to take advantage of the situation and stab Zhong Yuni in the punch. After a final investigation, Gu Xuanji's gaze finally locked onto a person that almost no one would expect. "You did it right, girl?" Gu Xuanji stared at the junior sister who was crying miserably as she hugged Zhu Hanyun's corpse. This was Zhu Hanyun's junior sister who had been thrown in the first round. It was obvious that she had a good relationship with Zhu Hanyun. Therefore, after Gu Xuanji came to this conclusion, another student from Titan High immediately jumped out to smooth things over. "What nonsense are you talking about? Junior sister Ah Chun is the best with eldest senior brother." Later on, Gu Xuanji found out that this little junior sister who was crying miserably was called Yan Xiaochun. She was pure as her name implied, and she looked harmless to both humans and animals. She clearly weighed over 1,000 pounds, but she was so thin that she looked like a weak and pitiful child. But as a keeper of order, Gu Xuanji had seen this kind of disguise many times. These days, even the little girl who handed him orange juice might have two faces, let alone this little junior sister. Gu Xuanji smiled and began to explain his conclusion. "There are a few reasons for my suspicions. First, junior sister Yan Xiaochun was the first to discover the crime scene. After Balance Flame Middle School's Zhong Yuni used the knockoff version of the core-piercing punch, he didn't cause any bleeding. So if junior sister Yan Xiaochun noticed it first, she'd have a good chance to land the killing blow and take advantage of the situation to injure her spirit root and cause internal bleeding. It's just that junior sister Yan Xiaochun probably didn't realize that the senior brother wasn't the real senior brother, and that the real Zhu Hanyun had been replaced a long time ago. What's lying here now is just a prop created using the construction spell. Also, the senior who used the construction spell was clearly a veteran, and his skills were so good that he could almost pass off the fake as the real thing. Also, I just asked the students from South Sea Sky High to carefully rearrange the sequence of spells cast. Now I can be 100% sure that student Yen Xiaochun was the last to cast the spell. Although the core piercing punch is a martial arts fist technique, spirit energy is also attached to the surface of the fist because it has to shock the spirit root. Gu Xuanji said, "It doesn't matter if junior sister Yen doesn't want to admit it, because according to the characteristics of the core piercing punch, after you used this move on your senior brother, the spirit energy penetrated his dantian and injured his spirit root, so the spirit energy molecules in his body would also stick to his body. And this is direct evidence." As for student Zhong from Balance Flame Middle School, he deliberately missed this punch, so student Zhu's spirit energy wouldn't be on him. Of course, this was just Gu Xuanji's current speculation. When he saw junior sister Yen Xiaochun's face turn uglier and uglier, he knew he was mostly right. But there was still one thing that Gu Xuanji didn't understand, and that was that he still hadn't found junior sister Yen Xiaochun's motive. Someone who couldn't have done it at all had done it. There could only be one explanation for this. That was, this junior sister Yen Xiaochun wasn't the real junior sister Yen Xiaochun. She was probably being controlled, or she wasn't Yen Xiaochun herself at all. Gu Xuanji actually had the ability to verify this. But there were too many people here, and Gu Xuanji knew very well that the teachers and principals outside were also watching the situation. If he chose to make a move, he would definitely expose his true strength. Thus, Gu Xuanji could only continue to provoke them with words. "I know everyone thinks that junior sister Yen Xiaochun couldn't have done it, but has it ever occurred to you that this junior sister Yen Xiaochun has already been switched?" They were all smart people. When Gu Xuanji said this, the Titan High School students who had defended her earlier stopped talking. Because the reason that she had been switched was completely valid. Yen Xiaochun was the first person Zhu Hanyun had sent up. In other words, she was the first person to reach the top. After reaching the top, there was a gap of several minutes before the second person was sent up. Who knew what had happened in that gap of a few minutes? For a very long time, the scene fell silent. Junior sister Yen Xiaochun buried her head, and her crying had completely stopped. Since she had already been exposed to this extent, there was naturally no need for her to hide. And the next moment, a horrifying scene that made everyone's eyes tremble happened. Junior sister Yen Xiaochun's scalp actually split open in front of everyone. A terrifying ghost hand densely covered in evil runes stretched out of Yen Xiaochun's body, and at the same time, it let out a cruel laugh. "I've underestimated you little ghosts. A very strong aura." Gu Xuanji narrowed his eyes. Just as he had guessed, this Yen Xiaochun wasn't the real Yen Xiaochun. Immediately after, two ghost claws and an ethereal body scuttled out of Yen Xiaochun's body, and in a flash, all the lights in the corridor went out. The nightmare had already descended. Chapter 1142. In the darkness, all kinds of screams rang out one after another. Most of the students' vision went dark, and all kinds of nightmares actually appeared in their minds. These were nightmares that they had dreamed of before, nightmares that could wake them up from their deep sleep. Now, it was as if they were old photos that kept looping in their minds. Very quickly, a lot of people found it hard to breathe, and their faces gradually turned pale. Super Chen, Hero Gua, Lotus Sun. Without exception, they all fell to the ground. The air around them was infinitely compressed, and a sense of suffocation swiftly surged up. Then, their limbs twitched because they couldn't breathe. "It's all over." In the gloom, a pair of bloodshot red eyes glowed faintly with a cold light. It originated from an illusory spirit body, and echoed in everyone's minds like a nightmare. "Nightmare, as expected, you've come back to life. The #1 person of the Dark Network before Ultimate King of Killers." At that moment, President Chi's voice suddenly echoed in the corridor. Dressed in a white coat, he stared at the twitching children on the ground and sighed softly. "I wanted to ferret you out, but I still underestimated your ferocity. I never thought that you wouldn't even let these children off. I didn't want to act early, as it would disrupt our master plan. We can only blame these students for being too smart. You were actually able to see through my identity." Nightmare Lord's voice was a little hoarse. Just listening to his voice was enough to make one feel uncomfortable. "Why did you attack Zhu Hanyun?" According to the plan, Titan High was the first school I was going to dismantle. Zhu Hanyun was their captain. Since I had the opportunity, it was naturally best to get rid of him first. I quietly attached myself to the students who were coming up the stairs, and in order not to be discovered, I kept shuttling back and forth between the students, said Nightmare. Get rid of Titan High first? President Qi gleaned this information from Nightmare's words. Logically speaking, Titan High shouldn't be able to have any effect on a top expert of the dark network like Nightmare. But now that Nightmare had said that he wanted to attack this group of Titan High School students first, the only possibility that President Qi could think of was that Nightmare and the master behind him were worried that Titan High's meatball tank technology would cause severe damage to the terrain around Nine Dragon Mountain, thereby affecting the position of the Heavenly Meridian main valve to some extent. As expected, this group of people had come for the Heavenly Vein main valve. Where is Dark Ancestor Xie San Shao now? President Qi asked as he gazed at Nightmare. Nightmare was clearly taken aback by this question, but he soon sneered. As expected of the wisdom saint of the 10 generals. General Qi's reputation is indeed extraordinary. But rather than worrying about Lord Dark Ancestor's matters, you should think carefully about how to save your batch of students. The King of Nightmares chattered on. You carefully selected so many students from all over the country to participate in the body technique competition. These students should be the cream of the crop of the young generation in the cultivation world. Unfortunately, due to your negligence, they all died in my hands. As the commander-in-chief of this competition, you cannot absolve yourself from the blame. What credibility will your Wuxia alliance have in the future? Hee. I never thought that after being dead for so long, Mr. Nightmare would come back to life with a sharper tongue than I imagined. President Qi also laughed. I and my teacher figured out your plan a long time ago. We clearly knew that you would make a move during the National Body Technique competition on Nine Dragon Mountain this time, but we still held the competition. Given Mr. Nightmare's intelligence, you should be able to guess the reason, right? You mean this is a trap? Nightmare's eyes darkened. He couldn't believe it at all and he roared. That's impossible. Look at these kids, they're all lying on the ground. They're twitching all over. They've all fallen into my nightmare reincarnation spell, and suffocated to death in their nightmares. There's no way they can come back to life. Nightmare reincarnation spell. This is one of Mr. Nightmare's famous moves back then. President Qi said, Mr. Nightmare is so famous, how could I not know about this move? On the other hand, since I already knew about it, I was naturally prepared. Do you know why I prepared these 700,000 spiral steps? President Qi pointed out the key to this test. When King of Nightmares heard the word spiral staircase, he immediately understood. There are only 2 people in the whole of Wuxia who can build a dream for multiple people, and one of them is me. The other one is my disciple. But my disciple is on vacation at the moment. So I have to do it myself. President Qi revealed the truth. So, Mr. Nightmare, you entered my dream from the very beginning. Everything you see is just an illusion based on my dream. The students who are already dead on the ground have in fact already woken up, and the ones who are twitching aren't real. For these kids, it's just a nightmare. That's impossible. King of Nightmares roared hysterically. Nothing is impossible, Mr. Nightmare. This is a trap I set up for you. President Qi stared at Nightmare and sneered. At that moment, Nightmare finally realized that the situation wasn't good. His insubstantial spirit body swiftly fled frantically through the air in an attempt to rush out of the pagoda. But just when he thought he had escaped, the scene in front of him suddenly changed, and he was back to square one again. President Qi was standing in front of him. Everyone is in the same dream, including you, Nightmare Lord. You can't escape. President Qi's voice was cold. He was a dreamer who built dreams, and no one could escape a dreamer who set up a dreamer's dream. If they were in the real world, the Nightmare Lord would have many ways to escape. But in the dream, Nightmare was like a vicious beast destined to be locked in a cage. Especially when President Qi personally took action, there was no way for Nightmare to escape. It's all over. In the next moment, President Qi snapped his fingers. With Nightmare's blood-curdling screams, the entire nightmare was torn to pieces by President Qi on the spot. And Nightmare's spirit body was completely destroyed. The lights in the pagoda came on again. A lot of people felt like they had woken up from a terrible nightmare, but after checking their bodies, they didn't feel anything wrong with them. The only ones who had it worse were Wang Ling and the others. Because they hadn't been hypnotized to begin with, and hadn't been dream-built, they were well aware of what had happened. Thus, when Nightmare appeared, everyone was twitching on the ground, and Wang Ling and the others could only twitch along with him. As his body writhed stubbornly on the ground, Wang Ling felt like a crazed loach. And the most infuriating thing was that President Qi was actually chatting non-stop with Nightmare. When the twitching was over, Wang Ling lifted his clothes and felt that the outline of his abdominal muscles had become even more distinct. It's so hard for me. Illusion Moon Academy, The Daily Life of the Immortal King, latest chapter, The Daily Life of the Immortal King, chapter 1142. Wang Ling. It's so hard for me. Website. Chapter 1143. From the very beginning, President Qi had set up this trap to capture Nightmare. But this #1 killer of the Dark Network clearly wasn't the only expert the mastermind had sent behind the scenes this time. Although President Qi didn't know who else there was, Nightmare, who had been the most difficult to catch, had already been caught. As long as the rest were a little more vigilant, it shouldn't be too difficult to deal with them. After tearing Nightmare's spirit body to shreds, President Qi immediately used the magic disc to imprison Nightmare's 3 souls and 7 spirits. This was a magic treasure which he had prepared beforehand to imprison souls. Nightmare was too dangerous and had to be killed, but with his soul shackled, there was almost no danger to speak of. In the command center, Old Huang stared at the magic disc in President Qi's hand and said approvingly, "Well done. Clean and efficient. You didn't embarrass me." In the end, this student didn't disappoint teacher. President Qi nodded slightly, but the expressions on the master and disciples' faces didn't relax. This was just the beginning. They had expended so much manpower to capture Nightmare, and the remaining criminals who were still lurking in the dock would definitely be very careful with every step they took. "When you made your move just now, I received news that Little Bai's reinforcements are about to arrive. They're more experienced in catching these Dark Network people," said Old Huang. "Oh, it's them." President Qi nodded, unsurprised. The previous time, it had also been those Dark Network criminals who had caused trouble at a student event, and the Mahjong trio had made a great contribution in that operation. They had helped General Bai deal with a number of troublesome Dark Network criminals one after another, and all of them were top Red 3A wanted criminals. It was just that their opponents this time might be even more troublesome than last time. At the very least, the people they had dealt with last time had all been wanted criminals who were still alive. And this time, it was very likely that they would be dealing with dead Dark Network experts. Now the Old Devil, Evil Sword God and the Master of Immortal Mansion were all under General Bai's command. And their code name was Mahjong. In the same van as last time, General Bai and the 3 of them sat in the back and held a simple meeting. Because they had no idea who their opponents were at all in this reinforcement operation this time. While Nightmare was already completely under President Qi's control, Nightmare didn't necessarily know who the mastermind behind the scenes had resurrected. Apart from the leader of the Dark Network, Xie Sanshao, who was known as the Dark Ancestor, they knew nothing about the rest of their opponents. Interesting. I didn't think that even Xie Sanshao would appear this time. I've been looking for an opportunity to spar with him. Listening to General Bai's account of the whole incident, the Old Devil was suddenly a little excited. "Xie Sanxiao's little finger is very similar to my wife's. If my venerable self can take down Xie Sanxiao this time, will the general give me his right little finger? It won't be too late to talk after you've captured him." The corners of General Bai's mouth twitched. Although the Old Devil had turned over a new leaf, he was still a pervert. But if it was the Old Devil, he might really be able to do it. Because Xie Sanxiao was also a pervert. General Bai still remembered the conversation the princeps had with him before this operation, and one of the words had left a deep impression on him. There is a saying that only magic can defeat magic, so I agree that only perverts can fight perverts. In General Bai's opinion, these words couldn't be more brilliant. If perverts could be graded. The Mahjong trio sitting in the back of the van now had a pervert index that far exceeded the national average of perverts, and could be called the epitome of perverts. One was obsessed with his wife to the point that it was almost to the point of morbidity. Another was obsessed with his eyeshadow, and didn't even know how to do radio gymnastics without it. The last was obsessed with spirit swords to the bone, and couldn't move when he saw a good-looking sword. Furthermore, This symptom was much stronger than that of college students who were clearly struggling to make ends meet but still had to take out loans to buy basketball shoes. Leading these 3 people to turn over a new leaf was a slightly difficult process for General Bai himself. He only hoped that he wouldn't be assimilated after being in contact with them for too long. Collecting his thoughts, General Bai swept his gaze over the 3 people and said, "We don't know who our opponents are at the moment, but we can analyze them first and prepare ourselves." Saying this, General Bai turned on his wristwatch, and the avatars of many deceased Dark Network members were immediately projected in the air. Since they're going to be resurrected, they definitely won't be small fry. Look at these avatars. Is there anyone you think is powerful enough to be resurrected by the person behind the scenes to become our opponent this time? The 3 of them swept their gazes over the projected avatars and found that there were indeed quite a few familiar faces. Xiaofan is actually dead? When did this happen? The old devil pointed to one of the avatars. It was a middle-aged man with a buzz cut and a very obvious X-shaped burn scar on his forehead. General Bai clicked on the avatar, and this person's profile was quickly projected separately on the other side. Xiaofan Rokuro, originally from Sun Island, Dark Network Red 4A wanted criminal, confirmed to have died 20 years ago. Cause of death: annihilated by Mishio Nation's peacekeeping force during a hunter operation launched by the International Alliance of Cultivators. What you're seeing now is top secret, so there are some things you might not know, General Bai said. From your tone, you sound very familiar with this Xiaofan Rokuro? About 50 years ago, I personally looked for Xiaofan Rokuro about my wife. I knew that he was proficient in the 7 kills techniques and had a powerful psychic ability, so I asked him if he could help me find my wife's soul. The old devil folded his arms and said, "But later he told me that my wife had already been reincarnated." Was this also an opportunity for you to launch a series of operations later? Yes. The old devil said non-committally, but I only know that this Xiaofan Rokuro is very strong, but I've never really fought him. The rumor is that Xiaofan Rokuro's 7 kills techniques are a combination of Sun Island's ninjutsu. He claims that anyone he fights will die in 7 moves. The 7 kills techniques, huh? General Bai made a mental note of this information, which wasn't in the official file. But General Bai felt that Mishio's military cultivators might have known about this, and just hadn't written it down on purpose. This intelligence base was under the jurisdiction of the International Alliance of Cultivators, and various countries worked together to collect intelligence on world-class wanted criminals, which was made public to all countries. However, some Western countries were still unwilling to share the information and kept it to themselves. At that moment, there was actually something that piqued General Bai's interest. General Bai, can I ask you a question? The old devil. Go ahead, General. General Bai, I want to know the cause of your wife's death. The old devil's face darkened. If you think it has something to do with the operation, my venerable self can indeed tell you, but it's a long story. Chapter 1144. A large part of the reason why the old devil had committed so many crimes was because he wanted to find his wife, Maya. Asking the old devil to recall that parting of life and death was undoubtedly rubbing salt in the wound, but General Bai had a vague intuition. He felt that the matter between the old devil and his wife could be linked to Xiaofan Rokuro. My wife, Maya, grew up with me. She used to be a member of the peacekeeping force, said the old devil. A female peacekeeping force member? General Bai didn't expect the old devil's wife to have this identity. Furthermore, female peacekeepers were very rare to begin with. Foreign peacekeeping work was relatively complicated and full of life-threatening dangers. Although there were female peacekeepers, the ratio of men to women was limited, and most female peacekeepers did medical support work. This wasn't gender discrimination. It was just a different division of labor. The main reason was that the organization was more protective of the fairer sex. Peacekeeping work was too dangerous, and if a girl didn't have a strong desire to do so, the organization usually wouldn't specially form a female peacekeeping vanguard. In the end, the work of charging and breaking through enemy lines was still left to those hot-blooded, rough men. General Bai had never heard the old devil talk about his wife before, and was a little surprised to hear her identity as a peacekeeper. But there were so many peacekeepers that it was impossible for General Bai to remember all of them. Is her code name Maya? General Bai asked. No, her peacekeeping code name is you, said the old devil. General Bai was astonished. It's actually her? This was a famous peacekeeper from more than 1,000 years ago. After losing contact during an operation, her whereabouts had been unknown, and it wasn't until 500 years ago that Wuxia Alliance officially confirmed her death. It was said that a member of the peacekeeping force had found a short knuckle of Miss Maya's hand, and after a DNA test, it was confirmed that it was Miss Maya. But this knuckle had been found in a very strange location in an abandoned Taoist temple. Because it had been so long ago, no one knew what had happened back then. All that was known was that 5 muddy footprints had been found in the abandoned Taoist temple. Someone had stabbed Miss Maya in the last moments before she died. This was the analysis of relevant experts based on the scene. In short, this case had caused a sensation back then, but because it had been so long ago, almost all traces of the scene had been wiped clean with the passage of time. Of course, there was one thing that could be said to be the greatest doubt in this case, and that was where the rest of Miss Malt's corpse went. Because in the Taoist temple, only this finger bone was found. Back then, the finger bone left behind an unresolved peacekeeping case. Unfortunately, because of the long time gap, no one knows what happened. General Bai sighed. I remember you. Ah no, Miss Maya. She was the captain of Peacekeeping Team 6 back then. Her performance was excellent and she repeatedly made contributions. After the case happened, it caused a sensation for a while. I once transferred 3 groups of people, no less than 100 people, to investigate this matter, but to no avail. This is indeed a strange matter. It's not the general's fault. The old devil sighed and said, My venerable self has been searching for my wife's whereabouts all this time, but so far I found nothing. There will be a day when this matter will be solved. General Bai's mind was in turmoil. He had never thought that the old devil would actually be Moon's boyfriend. His devotion was indeed moving. But a mistake was a mistake, and the road of atonement still had to be taken. Sympathy couldn't reduce a fixed punishment, otherwise it would be contempt for the rule of law in the cultivation world. General Bai silently kept this in mind. What had happened back then had also been a thorn in his side, and he was looking forward to the day when this thorn would be pulled out. The meeting continued. After composing himself, General Bai turned his gaze to the master of Immortal Mansion and Evil Sword God, who were also deep in thought. What about you two? Are there any familiar faces among them? This one. The master of Immortal Mansion pointed to a dark-skinned young man with a very distinctive hairstyle. This man had an afro. Lee Modi. General Bai clicked open this person's profile and saw where he had come from. This was a dark network expert who had died 300 years ago. At that time, people had given him the nickname of Explosive Maniac Lee Modi. His mine burial technique was very troublesome and shocking. Anything that he touched would become a bomb, and the slightest vibration would immediately cause it to explode. Back then, Lee Modi could be said to be invincible, because no one could tell whether or not he had touched something. As for his death, it was a complete accident. Is Lee Modi also dead? The old devil asked. He is indeed dead, and as for the cause of death, take a look for yourselves. General Bai clicked open the profile. Lee Modi, cause of death suffering from Alzheimer's disease in his later years. He forgot that the things he had touched had already become bombs, and accidentally detonated the bombs he had planted. It was okay to forget. Whether it was the old devil, the master of Immortal Mansion or Evil Sword God, they were all speechless about this cause of death. Evil Sword God's focus was also a little strange. Can cultivators also get Alzheimer's disease? There are already pills to treat Alzheimer's disease, but Lee Modi, he was wanted all over the world back then, and he ran around everywhere. He had already lost the best time for treatment. Furthermore, he liked to travel alone, and no one was with him. Once his disease flared up, not only would he forget the bombs he had planted, he would even forget to take his medicine. The master of Immortal Mansion said, I once fought him. In my intrinsic spirit field, he turned my swords into bombs and blew up several of my beloved spirit swords. If Lee Modi comes back to life, it will indeed be troublesome. General Bai also made a note of this person. No one knew more about explosives than he did, because he himself was the explosion saint. He was world famous for his explosive skills. The Thunder Burial spell was in fact a spell that General Bai had developed back then, but because it was too lethal and dangerous, he had destroyed it when he had designed it back then. Even General Bai himself hadn't expected that the spell he had designed back then would actually be used by Li Modi. Of course, General Bai actually didn't rule out the possibility that Li Modi had developed the Thunder Burial spell on his own. As long as one grasped the basic principles of the myriad of spells, they would always be the same. Li Modi was also an explosive expert, so it wasn't strange that he could think of the principles of the Thunder Burial spell. It's your turn. After making a note of Li Modi, General Bai turned to look at Evil Sword God. Evil Sword God pointed at a youngster with an unusual hairstyle. This person looks familiar. I think I've fought him before. He's also wearing eyeshadow. General Bai took a deep breath. Of course you look familiar, because this person is you. The eyeshadow Evil Sword God had also been one of the Red 5A wanted criminals of the Dark Network back then. However, a foreign cultivation peacekeeping unit had caught a swordsman who also wore eyeshadow during a mission back then, and mistakenly thought that this was Evil Sword God himself. In fact, that person was just a copycat criminal, and was said to be a fan of Evil Sword God himself. Unfortunately, it turned out that the gap between the idol of one's dreams and the real person was actually very big. Who knew how that fan who had been caught in Evil Sword God's place back then would feel when he saw this idiotic Evil Sword God without eyeshadow? Chapter 1145. Everyone knew that Evil Sword God's true form was his eyeshadow. Without eyeshadow, he was a yes man, but with eyeshadow, he was a heavy punch. This was the first time General Bai had seen this kind of freak who could switch personalities from eyeshadow to himself. But it had to be said that Evil Sword God with eyeshadow was indeed very strong. In General Bai's view, Evil Sword God's sword skills were almost on par with General Yi's. Both of his disciples had such outstanding sword skills, and as Shifu, Sword Immortal Fan Rue shouldn't have any regrets. The only pity was that Evil Sword God had cultivated too aggressively, which had caused his mind to be swallowed up, and he had become what he was now, creating that appalling case of Shifu murder. Thinking this, General Bai sighed in his heart. He had used cold fire to help Evil Sword God create a pair of eyeshadow. Very quickly, Evil Sword God's gaze turned sharp. Everyone knew that Evil Sword God, who had been a heavy punch, had returned. Naturally, his memories were different when he switched personalities. When Evil Sword God looked at these familiar faces on the projection, the past flashed before his eyes in that moment, and he sneered. With all due respect, I don't think there's anyone difficult to deal with among these people. He crossed his arms confidently and smiled disdainfully at the avatars. Then, Evil Sword God pointed to one of them. Criminal file. Name, Berserk Anti, Han Wuxia. Wanted level. Red 2A wanted order. Personal summary. A wanted member of the Dark Network. Nicknamed Berserk Anti with golden instant noodle hair. Loves gluttony and is slightly obese. Placed on the global wanted list for robbing banks in 82 countries. Known as one of the most brutal and inhumane robbers in history, she doesn't leave a single cent for others wherever she goes. Anyone who sees her true face is cruelly killed. Ability. Famous skill. 8 immortals devour. Berserk Anti can turn her stomach into a small world, forming a black hole for a short time to devour people or things around her. Once a living thing is sucked in, it will be immediately torn to shreds. It's a very tricky spatial spell. Cause of death. During an international peacekeeping mission, she was baptized by Sword Chi and cut into 8 pieces on the spot. She died a tragic death. What happened to this person? General Bai asked. General Bai still had an impression of this person. Back then, Han Wuxia had committed a lot of crimes in Wuxia Nation. She had taken the money and directly fled across the sea to a neighboring country, putting on a very beautiful show of a cicada slipping out of its shell. After that, Han Wuxia fled abroad for many years, robbing many countries. When General Bai received news of her again, she was already dead. The truth is that Han Wuxia died at my hands. Evil Sword God sneered. That damn fat woman deserved to die. He died at your hands. General Bai, the old devil and the master of Immortal Mansion were stunned. Back then, I wanted to sneak into the peacekeeping force and look for the top experts there, but in the end, I ran into Han Wuxia. Evil Sword God said, Han Wuxia saw through my identity and took the initiative to provoke me. And then, she asked me if she was beautiful. I replied, what's so beautiful about a fat, oily pig's intestines? She then challenged me to a duel. Evil sword got scared. She clearly couldn't beat me, but still insisted on fighting me. I cut off her tongue first so that she couldn't use 8 immortals devour, then cut off her thigh, then her. Slow down. For a moment, General Bai unexpectedly found it a little hard to digest. This plot development. It was a little strange. It's not just this berserk auntie. I see a lot of familiar faces in this projection. They all seem to have died to my sword. Then, Evil Sword God casually pointed at several people. Criminal file. Name, Edward Amen. Wanted level. Red 3A wanted order. Summary. One of the Dark Network's most wanted members. Born with a special glass constitution, he can blend in with his surroundings at any time and place. Nicknamed the Humanoid Chameleon. Has a powerful disguise ability and has planned many assassinations. Recognized by the international killer world. Abilities. Glass constitution, assassination skills, etc. Cause of death. Failed in an assassination mission. Suspected to have been killed by the assassination target, resulting in a headshot. This person used to be very famous in the killer world. Out of curiosity, my venerable self hired him to kill me, but was greatly disappointed in the end. I never thought this person would be so noob. Evil Sword God sighed. General Bai, the Old Devil and the Master of Immortal Mansion. Criminal file. Name. Iron Wing King Song Shiha. Wanted level. Red 4A wanted order. Summary. One of the Dark Network's most wanted members. Once regarded as one of the most threatening enemies by the Dark Network's #1 expert, ultimate king of killers. At a young age, he refined his ribs into iron wings on his back, which have powerful defensive and anti-injury abilities. Known as the Iron Wing King, he is indestructible. Abilities. Iron Wing Ambush Technique, Iron Wing Illusion Technique, Iron Wing Throw, etc. Cause of death. Suspected to have been the victim of an enemy's revenge. His death was tragic, and the soles of his feet were pierced by sword chi. Evil Sword God. I really can't be blamed for this person's death. His flaws were too obvious. What's the point of surrounding himself like an iron bucket? Didn't my venerable self sword chi still kill him from the soles of his feet? Ultimate King of Killers actually regarded him as a strong enemy. That's the biggest joke in the world. General Bai, the Old Devil and the Master of Immortal Mansion. General Bai took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Take a look at these people. How many of them did you kill? Give me a count. Apart from these 3 people, let me take a look at the rest. Staring at the page, Evil Sword God began to list all the Dark Network wanted criminals he had killed, and his face showed the excitement of counting medals. This one, and this one. When I killed them, the terrified expressions on their faces still make me feel incomparably excited when I think about them. These people brag outside every day about how strong they are, but didn't they still die to my sword? A few minutes later, the tally was done. General Bai went through the list. There were more than 100 dangerous Dark Network wanted criminals who had already died in the database. 34 of them, or 1/3 of the experts, had died at Evil Sword God's hands. Over the years, Evil Sword God had relied on his invincible sword chi to look for opponents everywhere. Although he had committed a lot of senseless killings, he had in fact indirectly punished a lot of criminals who had fled. On the other side, Evil Sword God's face was brimming with excitement. They're just a bunch of minions. If I can kill them once, I can kill them again. Looking at the list in his hand, General Bai's mood was very complicated. Chapter 1146. In fact, there was no real second elimination round. The second elimination round was just a trap set up by the officials to capture the Nightmare Lord. However, after the second elimination round, many headmasters in the command center could not help but focus their attention on one person. This person was none other than Gu Xuanji. This was a new transfer student from number 60 high school this year. Because of his excellent grades, he had been directly selected to participate in the competition and become one of the members who would bring glory to the school. In the entire second round of elimination, Gu Xuanji's performance in all aspects was remarkable. His calm judgment, logical reasoning ability, and understanding of all kinds of spells were almost perfectly displayed in this round. In short, number 60 high this year was a little unexpected. The main thing was that the headmasters present hadn't viewed number 60 high as an enemy at first. Apart from headmasters like Li Qingxi who had some history with Headmaster Chen and were a little wary, the other 95% of the headmasters hadn't specifically analyzed number 60 high's tactics. And now, seeing that the 800 students were about to enter the next round, it was obviously too late to discuss battle strategies. As the third round of the official 9 Dragon Mountain survival battle approached, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal motioned for all the students in their rooms to open a brocade pouch hidden under their beds. There was a golden talisman inside, which the students had to tie to their right arm as a symbol of the third round of competition. This golden talisman was very useful. It could save one's life at a critical moment. If one encountered a dangerous situation, the golden talisman would automatically turn into a golden shield to resist fatal attacks. At the same time, it would release a golden beam of light that would not dissipate in a short period of time to notify the nearby security team and medical team to quickly arrive. At the same time, this golden talisman was also an important item for the 9 Dragon Mountain security inspection team to monitor the students. It could ensure that they could accurately locate each student's activity range to avoid any accidents. "I'm going out for a while," said Xia Ming to his roommate, Tang Jingze, after tying the golden talisman. Tang Jingze felt that the look in Xia Ming's eyes was a little strange, but couldn't put his finger on it. But when he thought about how everyone had just experienced a nightmare from nightmare, he felt that Xia Ming might still be in a state of shock and hadn't come back to his senses, so he let Xia Ming go. Everyone had a different way of relieving stress. Besides, he and Xia Ming actually weren't that close, so there was no need for him to act like a real mother. After leaving the dormitory, Xia Ming breathed a sigh of relief. He had indeed felt nervous. Although Nightmare had been caught by President Qi, Nightmare's words still echoed clearly in President Qi's ears. Although he knew that Nightmare had been caught, Xia Ming still felt extreme fear from the depths of his soul. He stood in the corridor, trying to find some fresh air. However, he had only taken a few steps away from the dormitory when the scene in front of him suddenly darkened. It was like a scene from a nightmare. The entire corridor instantly went dark. No, Xia Ming felt that this pressure was even greater than Nightmare's. He felt cold all over, and every breath he took was accompanied by white mist. Then, a white-haired youth whose face could not be seen clearly suddenly appeared in front of him. Wang Ling. Xia Ming's pupils instantly contracted. Although he couldn't see the youngster's face clearly, the figure of the white-haired youngster in front of him was too similar to Wang Ling's, as if they had been cast from the same mold. For a brief moment, Xia Ming was a little dazed. The King of Nightmares has been arrested, but you still have to complete your mission. The white-haired youngster, whose face could not be seen clearly, spoke to Xia Ming in a cold and gloomy voice that carried the scent of Azura from hell, causing Xia Ming to tremble all over. Although this person's figure was very similar to Wang Ling's, Xia Ming could clearly feel that the person in front of him wasn't Wang Ling. Who on earth was this person? He could actually appear here without anyone noticing. Could it be that this was the mastermind behind all of this? You shoulder the mission of the ancient divine clan, and you are also the key to changing the world. As long as you do as you're told, your name will go down in history as a key figure in overturning the world. The white-haired youngster gave a light exhale, and thick fog instantly appeared in the space. In a flash, Xia Ming actually saw the future of the cultivation world. Beautiful, prosperous and free. Do you see, this is what the future looks like. The white-haired youngster's voice floated in the air. I can lend you the strength you lack. Lend me the strength. Xia Ming spread his hands, his body trembling slightly as he felt himself being encouraged. Although he knew that his next step might plunge the whole world into eternal damnation, it was as if his thoughts and soul had been controlled in that instant. The white-haired youngster's voice seemed to have a magical power that could draw out the inner demons hidden at the bottom of a person's heart. Then, Xia Ming felt his shadow actually shrink and wrap tightly around his body. A sharp pain surged into his abdomen. Xia Ming crouched down in pain and curled up on the ground. The pain was very short, and when Xia Ming came back to his senses, he found that his shadow had actually turned into an evil eye in his abdomen. Xia Ming really felt a surge of strength surge out of his body. This was a tremendous power that Xia Ming had never imagined, and one that he could control. It was far beyond the foundation establishment stage. Do you feel it? This is what it feels like to be strong. The white-haired youngster's voice floated in the air. As long as you obey my orders, you can become even stronger. This power is just the tip of the iceberg. It can help you smoothly reach the top of Nine Dragon Mountain. Senior. Xia Ming was excited. At that moment, he really felt like he was hallucinating. He felt like he was one of those protagonists who had suddenly had a fortuitous encounter, and whose realm had advanced by leaps and bounds. You have to keep this a secret. The white-haired youngster reminded him. The eye in your abdomen is called the Eye of Rebellion, which is connected to all your blood relatives. Once you betray me, all your loved ones will die because of you. What I hate the most in my life is traitors. Saturday, November 15th. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, 4 hours after Nightmare had been arrested. When the first rays of light hit the ground at dawn, the 8-day battle for survival on Nine Dragon Mountain officially kicked off. Everyone lined up according to their schools, and one by one, they were scanned by the admission equipment to confirm that they weren't carrying any magic treasures except for the golden talismans issued by the authorities. Wang Ling and the others lined up for the security check. In the queue, Wang Ling noticed that there seemed to be something wrong with Xia Ming's expression. Xia Ming looked particularly confident today, and also exceptionally abnormal. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.